Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Mississauga Civic Centre. You are here for the continuation of the meeting of the City of Mississauga's Budget Committee on this Tuesday, January the 13th. Seeing quorum around the table, I will call the meeting to order. I'll make a few statements after the Indigenous land statement and approval of the agenda. Then I'm going to ask Mayor Parrish to say an opening statement, and then I'm going to detail some of the rules as to how we're going to operate for tonight. There's lots of you here. Thank you for coming. We're glad you're here. We want to hear from you, and want to make sure that the meeting runs as smoothly and efficiently and responsibly as possible. But I will start with reading the Indigenous land statement. We acknowledge the lands which constitute the present-day City of Mississauga as being part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and Wyandot nations. And we recognize these peoples and their ancestors as peoples who inhabited these lands since time immemorial. The City of Mississauga is home to many global Indigenous peoples. And as a municipality, the City of Mississauga is actively working towards reconciliation by confronting our past and our present, providing space for Indigenous peoples within their territory to recognize and uphold their treaty rights and to support Indigenous peoples. We also formally recognize the Anishinaabe origins of our name and continue to make Mississauga a safe space for all Indigenous peoples. Can I ask for an approval of the agenda with the additional item of 11.2, which is an email dated January 12, 2026 from Dan Anderson, a resident, regarding the 2026 property tax communication and reporting discrepancies. Does someone want to? Councillor Fonseca, all in favor? That is carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for members of committee tonight? Okay, seeing none, there are no minutes from the previous meeting, and there are no presentations. So I will start by asking Her Worship Mayor Carolyn Parrish to share an opening statement with us, and then following that I'll give some guidelines to tonight, and then we'll get right into our deputations. Over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. Good evening, everyone. Under strong mayor powers, the mayor is responsible for our yearly budget. As in 2025, I delegated the preparation of this year's budget to staff with direction it must be extremely frugal out of concern for our residents who suffered through a 9.2% property tax increase in 2025 and are continuing to endure both job and food insecurity. Our industrial commercial taxpayers are also struggling with tariff unknowns. The city budget process started later this year as we first tackled the regional budget, which takes 48 cents out of every dollar that you put in. Once again, Peel Regional Police is a concern, presenting a 9.9% increase in 2026 on top of the 23.3% increase last year, translating to 2% of our current 3.6% overall 2026 regional tax increase. Regional Council has no control over this, as that responsibility falls to the Police Services Board members, 4 of 7 who are appointed by the province. Adding to our burden, despite equal populations, Mississauga pays 62% of the police bill, while Brampton pays only 38%. That cost to Mississauga taxpayers is over $100 million this year. And we are working on that, I can assure you. You have to understand, too, we support our police wholeheartedly, 100%. We want a safe city. We just want a fair split with Brampton, which is actually having a higher population than we have right now. For the first time in many years, our council, supported by Brampton, made major cuts in the regional proposed tax increase. The Mississauga-specific regional tax increase was originally proposed at 4.5%, but the final increase was reduced to 3.6%. Actually 3.36, but again, because we overpay as the largest or the most wealthy, I guess, part of the region, of the 3.36 we passed, we'll be paying 3.6. The others will be paying much less. This was done through cutting $26,923,620 in cuts in the following areas. We removed the community safety levy of 12.2 That was Councillor Tejo. We cut waste management $234,600. I think that was Councillor Hornick. We directed salary adjustments of $1,244,800. Can't remember who that was. We lowered the infrastructure levy by 0.5% from 1% for a saving of $8.4 million, and I think that was Councillor Demurla. We removed a number of proposed new hires for $4,750,000. I did that one. We are also anticipating future savings from Bill 45, recently passed by the province and supported by Regional Council. While Mississauga only has 29% of regional roads, Mississauga residents have been subsidizing the other two municipalities by paying twice this amount in levies. The downloading of regional roads was supposed to be effective July 1st, 2026, and it would have saved us $15 million in 2026 and a full $30 million in 2027. There's a questionnaire being circulated by the province now trying to delay it another 6 months, and we're fighting back as hard as we can, and Brampton is helping us with that. The city receives only 37% of each property tax dollar. Staff has done a very incredible job on our 2026 budget being presented today. It adds no new programs with only minimal hires in areas that are under stress, like bylaw enforcement. New union contracts are included with this full year impact. Costs for contractors and material increases, as well as fuel prices and other essentials, have all gone up, as you know. Services residents have indicated are significant, are being retained, like winter snow clearance. We are deferring projects that aren't essential and cutting some levies and reserves that we know we can reinstate in 2027 when the downloaded regional programs start to provide millions in savings to Mississauga. In summary, the city staff has achieved a 2.3% in inefficiencies for a savings of $17.4 million. They've lowered the capital infrastructure and debt repayment levy from 3% to 1%. They've paused the 1% public safety fire program till 2027. They've made a one-time transfer from reserves. They've delayed the 1% Trillium Hospital levy to start in 2029. In summary, the projected double-digit 2026 budget through significant action has been reduced to a 1.6 city budget and a 3.6 regional increase for the final residential property tax increase of 5.2% before we listen to you and before we go through the debates next week on what else we can tighten up on. I respectfully present today's proposed budget for consideration by council and by consideration of those of you who are here, and I thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for that overview. Greatly appreciate that. Hope that puts some of tonight's meeting into context for those that are going to be making deputations. So just before we start with various folks making deputations, just a couple of what I would call ground rules. First is I've asked our clerk's department, I know many of you come to our meetings of the Planning and Development Committee and you comment on development applications. And what we tend to do is we put up on the screen comments that are made so that we capture them. That's the most important thing. But second of all, that we're really trying to avoid duplication. If 10 or 15 people say the same thing, it's not really helping the flow of the meeting. So if you can try and look at what's being put up there and modify your deputation a little bit to focus maybe on an area that hasn't been covered by previous speakers, I think that would be helpful. The other thing I know with most of you, if not all of you in the room, many of you have made deputations to council before, and even though we do allow you a maximum of 10 minutes, most of you probably don't need 10 minutes. You're very articulate, you can get your points across. So let's try and modify that. I'm not going to be a real stickler if you're going over 10 a little bit, as long as the content, you know, continues to be on subject and you're not repeating what other people are saying. I think that's in the interest of everybody's time, not just members of committee, but everybody in the audience. Let's try and make this as succinct as possible. And finally, this meeting is completely designed to hear from the public. We've already had 2 budget committee meetings, Monday morning and Tuesday morning. We've received presentations from our staff in almost all of the departments at the city, of them telling us the budget request for 2026, what the plans are. in the 10-year capital budget as an example. So we've been through that already as committee, and I know a number of you have attended those meetings yesterday morning and this morning, and thank you for that. So we've been through that part of it as committee and as council. So as I say, we are here tonight to listen to you. But I will read the statement as it relates to deputations, just so it's on the record and everybody understands where we're going. Each deputation to Budget Committee is limited to speaking for not more than 10 minutes. Pursuant to Section 57.1 of the Council Procedural Bylaw 0044-2022 as amended, deputations shall be received and the matter shall be referred to staff for a report unless there is a resolution or recommendation passed to receive the deputation. After a deputation is completed, members shall have one opportunity to make a preamble statement and ask questions to the deputant or staff for clarification purposes only and without debate. So we will move into our deputations. I think it's really important that everybody in the room get a full budget overview. So I'm pleased that our first deputation is Faraz Agha. He's our Director of Finance and our Deputy Treasurer, and he will be providing an overview of the proposed 2026 budget. Faraz, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the Budget Committee, and a very good evening to and welcome to all the residents who took their time to be with us today. My name is Faraz Agha. I'm the Director of Finance and Deputy Treasurer for the city, and I'll walk you through some of the slides that we have put together for you. So let's begin with understanding the strong mayor power framework, first of all. So this slide outlines the framework guiding the preparation and presentation of the 2026 budget under the strong mayor power legislation. Under the legislation, the mayor is to present the proposed budget no later than 1st of February of the budget year. The legislation allows the mayor to delegate responsibility for preparing the budget to staff. For 2026, Mayor Parrish has exercised that option and directed staff to prepare the recommended budget. The proposed 2026 to 2029 business plan and the 2026 budget document was published last week, January 6th, ahead of the February 1st deadline. This slide outlines the key steps and timelines approving the 2026 budget under the strong mayor power legislation. The 2026 budget process starts today, started yesterday. Budget committee meetings will continue today as we did. And then we do have backup sessions of 19th and 20th if we need for that session. Earlier today, the budget committee decided to not shorten the 30-day amendment period, hence there will be a special council on 4th, and all amendments would be considered for voting on that day. Following the amendment, the mayor has 10 days to exercise a veto on any of the amendment if required. If a veto occurs, council has 15 days to override it with 2/3 of majority vote. The budget will be deemed adopted at the end of these periods, amendment, veto, or override, unless shortened by council or the mayor. Let's talk about the business planning priorities. The refreshed corporate priorities have been instrumental in shaping the 2026 to 2029 business plan and the 2026 budget. These updates ensure stronger alignment with emerging needs and evolving strategic objectives. The updated priorities are listed on the slide. Advance on the city's strategic vision, deliver the core services, tackle housing affordability with the mayor's housing task force, move forward with the city building, and implement cost containment strategies. As part of the annual budget cycle, the city runs an extensive budget education campaign to ensure that residents and businesses understand the changes in the budget and how they can get involved. These are the various campaigns used They're listed on the slide that we used this year. Many councillors also hosted ward-specific town halls that were very well received by the residents. This slide talks about an overall high level of how the city funds its operations and where the dollars are allocated in the 2026 budget. On the revenue side, property tax is still the major source of funding at 56%, followed by user fee at 17%, and then provincial funding and other revenues at around 12%. On the expense side, the biggest expense is still labor, which is at 54%, followed by transfer to reserves at around 19%. These transfers are essential to support our capital program, plus to maintain our financial health. Then we have contractor and professional services at 7%. This is a very important slide, which really identifies that the city only receives 37% of the property tax, but delivers more than 200 services such as transit, parks maintenance, recreation, and emergency services, etc. 48% of your property tax dollars go to the region, and 15% goes to the province for education. On the commercial side, the city only retains 26%, 39% goes to the province, and 35% goes to the region. Regional roads transition, let's talk a little bit about that. Peel Region Transition Act 2025 received royal assent on December 11th, 2025. This means that the city will be responsible for all the roads within its boundaries. Transferring these services to Mississauga will result in saving to the taxpayers, but detailed financial information is required before these changes can be incorporated in the city budget. As such, regional roads are not included in the city's proposed 2026 to 2029 business plan or 2026 budget. Original transfer date is July 1st, 2026, as Madam Mayor pointed out. In December 25, the province is proposing a regulation to change the effective date to July 1st, 2027, and are seeking public comments in December, which is passed already, so they're still compiling that. Staff will provide an update on the financial impacts of the regional roads transfer at a later date, including budget savings for 2026 and future years. Let's get into some more details on the budget. The budget has been very challenging to assemble for 2026, primarily because the non-discretionary pressures the city is facing, particularly union labor increases. The 2026 budget had been forecasted to increase by 13.3% during the 2025 cycle. Amid these challenging circumstances, the city staff were tasked with finding ways to reduce the budget, using tactics like deferring expenses, cutting discretionary budget, and increasing revenue. Staff were able to identify $17.4 million in budget savings. That translates into 2.33% in the budget reduction. The other options available to staff were to reduce the levies, which we have done for capital infrastructure and debt repayment levy from 3% to 1%, and we have paused the public safety fire program for 1% as well. In addition to that, there is a one-time transfer from the reserves to reduce the tax impact. How do we build the budget? So this is to just simplify how the budget is assembled. All these blocks, we start off with maintain current service levels. We reduce any efficiencies and cost savings that we can find. If there's any assessment growth, we reduce that. Then we add any new initiatives. And then we add the levies, capital infrastructure, and the public fire safety. I'll go into the details of each one of them separately. The first item considered were developing the operating budget is the cost of maintaining current service levels. These costs includes labor, like labor, materials, software license, and offset to some, and there are some offsets to the revenue. The total cost to maintain the current service level for 2026 attributes to $84.5 million, which amounts to 11.31% of the budget impact. I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the labor because that is the major component of the maintain current service levels. So 76% of the maintained current service level is labor, and out of that, 68% really is union settlements. As part of our commitment to cost containment, the city reviews the budget line by line to identify savings. For 2026, with the assistance of our service areas, we were able to identify $17.4 million, or 2.33% efficiencies and cost savings from the operating budget as listed on the slide. Just to identify a few, there were 1.8 million savings reduced in fuel consumption as hybrid buses have been replaced diesel buses. Then we have 1.7 savings in lower diesel fuel prices. Some savings were identified through increasing the revenue through Gulf, and then IT software rationalization, and then temporary contract staff possession reduction. So the new initiatives each year, the city carefully and systematically invests in new initiatives to advance on its strategic objectives. New initiatives were discouraged in 2026. As part of the goal to reduce the 2026 budget impact, of the 14 initiatives that were proposed, 10 are either self-funded or funded through capital. Highlights include enhancing enforcement service delivery to address coverage gaps, support proactive enforcement in high priority areas, and adding staff in building division to support faster housing approvals and meet city's housing objectives. Capital infrastructure levy, as we talked about earlier, that we have reduced the capital infrastructure, proposed to reduce the capital infrastructure levy from 3 to 1%. This this change was extremely difficult to achieve. We had to rework the capital budget multiple times to balance the numbers. Only reason to reduce this is to reduce the tax impact to our residents. The 2026 capital infrastructure levy is proposed to be calculated at 1%. The following are some of the efforts done to reduce the capital levy. Citywide reduction of $259 million, or 9% state of good repair projects, deferral of some major projects, and addition of capital works in progress returns of around $80.5 million. The capital infrastructure levy repayment levy was approved in 2008 budget. It helps maintain the $18.7 billion in assets that the city owns in state of good repair. Here's a snapshot of how the levy increased during and has been leading into 2026. So for 2026, it is at 1%. It will come back to 3% in 2027 to 2029. What were the impacts of this levy? So reduction of $110 million for roads, which mainly was contributed by road rehab budget cuts. Reduction of $60 million for parks, forestry, which included $46 million of major park redevelopment. Reduction of $35 million for recreation and community center renovation. Reduction of $26 million for fire safety, which is included in fire vehicle and equipment maintenance. And reduction of $23 million for Mississauga library infrastructure and technology software. Although we have reduced a significant amount of infrastructure levy and programs, but the city is still doing a lot of capital that are listed on the slide today. Fire safety program, the public fire safety was first approved in 2019 to provide funding for additional fire safety and fire stations and staff in order to effectively respond to higher density growth plans for Mississauga. At the time, it was determined that 7 new stations needed to be built over the next 12 years. This was to improve this service level capacity to prevent emergencies and to respond with speed and effectiveness. The program was later expanded to 2023 to also include necessary renovations to existing fire stations. The public fire safety program increases have been paused for 2026 in an effort to bring down the city's overall budget increase. This important funding program is planned to return with 1% increases in 27 and 28, and will continue as part of the base budget. This slide shows you a lot of numbers, but if I want to break it down for you, if you look at the first column, the very starting point is the $747 million. That's where we started the year. We have all these items that we were talking about earlier to maintain current service levels, efficiency, so a lot of addition and subtraction, which leads to a bottom line of $789 million. That would be the levy, which is an increase of $41.9 million. The next column talks about the budget impact of those dollars, and then the next column talks about the tax impact of the dollars. The last is shows you the property tax dollar value impacted based on $100,000 of assessed value of home. Right. Our priority is always to balance tax fairness with city needs to generate enough revenue to provide the services residents rely on. This slide provides the historic residential property tax from the past 16 years. The 2026 proposed budget rate is 1.6%, which is below the 1.8% average of the 16 years. And it also is below the 2025 CPI inflation rate of 2.2%. This slide summarizes the overall impact. The city staff have been able to mitigate the forecasted budget increase for 2026. If adopted, the city portion of the tax will be 1.61%. When combined with the regional rate of 3.6, the regional portion to the city of Mississauga, this adds to 5.21% overall property tax increase. The average price of a typical home has changed. Therefore, instead of the average price, we are showing per 100K, an increase of around $16.6 for the Mississauga share and $37.2 for the regional appeal share, with a combined value of 53.91% on the $100,000 worth of assessed value. So if you have a home of $1 million, it will translate into $530 for the year. These were all the impacts that we were talking about for 2026, but I do have some important stuff that would impact the city in the near future. First, we want to talk about the Peter Gilligan Hospital. Looking further into the 4 years forecast, City of Mississauga Council unanimously approved a motion from your parish to provide $390 million municipal contribution award Trillium Health Partners local share for the construction of Peter Gilligan Hospital. The facility is set to become Canada's largest community-based academic hospital and is expected to reach substantial completion by 2033. Mississauga's share to the new hospital represents a major investment in the city's future healthcare capacity. City of Mississauga is committed to working with its provincial and federal counterparts to ensure the needs of the city, the residents are met now and in future. The city is proposing an annual hospital levy of 1% starting from 2029. All revenues from the levy will be directed and dedicated to a dedicated reserve, which will be applied directly to the city's $390 million local share contribution. A debenture will be issued to cover remaining shortfalls between the approved contribution amount and balance of the levy collected as of January 1st, 2033. A little bit about the GTAA payment in lieu of taxes. In 2022, the city successfully advocated for the government of Ontario to remove the cap of payments that the Toronto Airport Authority provides the city in lieu of taxes. However, the provinces decided to reintroduce the 5% cap on an annual increase. This cap will take effect once GTAA reaches its pre-pandemic passenger count or passenger volume of 49.2 million. As per the current projection, this will occur in 2029. If the passenger count exceeds 5% annually, Mississauga will experience a loss in potential revenue. The next 3 slides are just the last 3 slides to talk about the long-range financial planning strategy. The 2025 long-range financial planning strategy is an update to the original framework that was developed in 2016, which has guided how the city manages its finances for nearly a decade. During this time, it has supported disciplined decision-making and long-range financial stability. Staff have updated the strategy to reflect current conditions, emerging pressures, and to better mitigate risk with the purpose of supporting council and staff in making informed decisions. And these informed decisions allow us to balance growth, to improve our service levels, and affordability over the long run, helping to achieve the city's 3 targeted outcomes as outlined here, which is ensuring sustainability, support financial flexibility, and mitigate vulnerability. Mississauga has a strong financial foundation and has demonstrated adaptability and financial strength, particularly over the last 5 years. At the same time, economic political shifts continue to shape the municipal sector. Pressures such as housing affordability, climate impacts, interest rates, and inflation fluctuations continue to influence our financial outlook. By building on the lessons learned and the financial stability established over the past decade, the city is well positioned to move forward from a place of strength and proactive planning. At the core of the strategy are the 10 guiding principles that form the foundation for future decision-making. These are not new concepts, as many reflect existing financial policies and practices. But these have now been formalized to serve as common reference point going forward. The principles are designed to work together as an integrated and flexible framework, supporting the city as it navigates complex and often difficult decisions, particularly when balancing competing priorities and emerging pressures. Most importantly, the long-range financial planning strategy provides clarity beyond the annual budget. It allows us to understand the long-range impacts of today's decisions, the trade-offs involved, and the risk of inaction, and then strengthening the city's financial resilience today and into future. That is my presentation, and open for any questions, comments.
Thank you very much, Faraz. Any members of the committee have questions for Faraz? Seeing none, can I have someone move receipt of the deputation? Councillor Hornick, thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, members of the public, this is your turn. I'm going to try and make this as, I guess, straightforward and easy for everybody as possible. One of the things I find helpful when there's so many people in the audience that wish to speak tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the 3 people that are like 1, 2, 3 in the pecking order so that you can be ready. When the previous person is done, you can be like ready to go. That will save us a lot of time, especially if you're sitting like in the back row and you've got to make your way all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the 3 speakers coming up, and I'll keep doing that as we go through, and hopefully people can move along as quickly as possible. So 7.2, our first speaker tonight is Khalid Shuja, resident, regarding freezing budget increase for 3 years. When you do come to the podium, can you please say your name again in case I pronounce it incorrectly, for which I apologize. And if you're comfortable, please give us your home address in Mississauga so that we know who you are, where you live, and that you're speaking about your city. So Khalid, we know you well. Go ahead, sir. Welcome.
Madam Mayor and...
Oh, sorry, I should have said the next one will be Nick Periano, and the next one, George Tavares after that. Sorry, go ahead, Khalid.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and respected members of the Council, I guess I agree with Councillor Brad that we should not repeat what one is, you all must be tired of listening the same thing, that we want to reduce the property tax or freeze it. So we don't have any other, there is only one thing we want. If you all guarantee that you are going to reduce more than 5.2%, then we are happy and nobody will come here to speak for the deputation. So my name is Khalid Shuja, and I'm here today representing more than 3,000 resident families who have signed my petition calling for a freeze on property taxes for the next 3 years. I also want to acknowledge something important. Today is the final meeting where residents are invited to speak. Yet many residents strongly feel that the decision to approve a property tax increase has already been made, and that we say today may not change the outcome, even though the impact will be felt directly by the residents. I can see the pressure on the faces of most of you. Budget days are always very tense. I ask you all to give one more powerful thought to the budget members who have already brought it down from the initial 10.4% hike proposal to around 5.2% overall. And that progress is appreciated. But based on my experience in similar scenarios, there are always a few more cards to play. I firmly believe that with another round of discussions among yourselves, you could bring the overall increase further down to 1.5% or lower, if not full freeze. I stand before you not as a politician, but as a long-time resident of Mississauga, an immigrant, a taxpayer, a parent. Like many immigrants, my family and I came to Canada with a dream, the dream that this country could become our permanent home. We worked hard, paid our taxes, followed the rules, and believed that if we contributed honestly, we would live with dignity and stability. After more than 25 years in this country, I never imagined I would stand here today and say this: we are once again struggling to survive financially, just as we did in our birth country. Back home, their kind of dictatorship, decisions were made far away from the ordinary people, and citizens were expected to quietly absorb the consequences. Here in Canada, we do not face dictatorship, but sometimes it feels like we face something else, a blindfold establishment and an insulated bureaucracy, disconnected from the lived reality of residents. Property tax is not an abstract number. It is groceries, it is rent or mortgage payments. It is heating bills, it is seniors choosing between medication and food. It is families silently cutting back year in year. Earlier, residents were told to expect a 10.4% increase. This number shocked the community. People mobilized, petitions were signed, and residents spoke up. Not because they enjoy complaining, but because they are at a breaking point. I strongly feel that the budget session like this often function as a release valve. Residents are allowed to speak, frustration is heard, but decisions proceed largely unchanged. If public input does not meaningfully affect someone, then participation becomes symbolic rather than democratic. This is an election year. I ask every councillor sitting in front of me today to reflect on that, not as a threat, but as a reminder of accountability. Our neighboring municipality, Oakville, approved the property tax increase of less than 2%. If Oakville can exercise restraint, why can't Mississauga? Today, I ask the council to reject any property tax increase higher than Oakville's. Keep the city portion under 2%, because if residents feel unheard and ignored, they will express themselves not here at the podium, but at the ballot box. I still believe in this city, I still believe in this country, and I still believe Mississauga can choose affordability, restraint, and accountability. Please prove that participation matters. Please prove that council listens and acts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Khalid. Yes, you've been very passionate on this, and you've worked really hard with your petition and others. Councillor Hornick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to briefly thank you for coming. And you've come here a couple of times now in the last little while, and you've shown your passion and interest in the topic, and I'm really thankful for that. I was reflecting with one person in the audience earlier tonight that I remember the year before COVID, Councillor Butt, myself, and only one other individual came to budget that year. And so I'm actually really happy to see everybody here tonight. Because I feel that public participation is really important in the city, and I get disheartened when people don't come. So you're going to ask us some tough questions tonight, and that's just great. I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
And one last thing I'd just say is you started by kind of saying you feel like everything's kind of cooked in. And as Faraz was saying, you know, we have 2 more sessions where councillors can introduce amendments, more things can be brought forward. We may have some wonderful ideas tonight that councillors will reflect on and look to take action on. So your time is not wasted, and I think if we didn't care, we wouldn't be here tonight. So thank you for your time.
I think suggestions will not matter. Nobody can discuss about the figures, about the numbers. I think if you can also, I know our mayor, I voted for you, I voted for Brad. You might be angry that I'm coming here again and again. So I know only like 2, 3, you can do it. If you can bring it from 10.4 to 5.1, 5.2, then bring it like 1.5. And we will be voting for you again. I want to see you all, but it is, thank you.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next 3, Nick Puriano, George Tavares, and then Glenn Vokes. I believe Nick and Martine are online.
They have not arrived yet.
They have not arrived, so I'll move on.
Yep.
That's okay for everybody? Okay, I know George Tavares is here. So, George, you're up.
Thank you very much. George Tavares, 2091 here, Ontario Street. Okay. I'm not sure if you want the orientation that way. It appears as though it is. Wonderful. I'm going to read this verbatim. I apologize. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is George Tavares, and I want to acknowledge that many members of Council held meetings throughout the wards during the 2025 to discuss proposed tax increases and to ask residents where savings can be considered. I want to speak directly to those questions on the slide here. Based on what residents are experiencing, the Windrow clearing program should not be an ongoing service. So the residents have been reporting, so I'm going to give you this. I'm really sorry, I'm going to just throw a few things out here. Residents are reporting compacted snow being left in the middle of the driveways, partial cleaning on double driveways, damage to boulevards, grass, and other problems, conflicts with garbage, collection, frozen barriers that are more difficult to remove than residents could have done themselves. I can keep going on with the slides, but I think everybody understands that people are not really pleased with that. Okay, so even though those who receive the services, the outcomes are uneven. Some driveways are fully cleared, others are partially blocked. Follow-up usually depends on complaints, repeated calls to 311, or councillor involvement. I know some of you have had to reach out to the powers that be to make this work. That shifts a municipal service into a complaint-driven and politically mediated process, which is not how operations should function. So residents were asked during the ward meetings to possibly identify adjustments that could manage tax impacts for future years. I think this is one of them. My apologies, I'll flip through there. I bypassed a few things to save some time. There's also a built-in fairness issue. Residents living in condos, apartments, and many townhouses development receive little to no benefit from windrow clearing. Snow removal in these communities are already handled through private contracts, paid through by condo fees, rent, or property management budgets. As a result, a significant portion of tax-paying residents are paying twice. Once through their housing-related fees and again through property taxes for a service that they do not receive and cannot access. So when a service excludes a large share of residents, it raises legitimate concerns. So I'm looking forward to maintaining the tax stability in 2027 and 2028 and beyond. We have to look for adjustments so we can't rely on further using of the reserves or speculative offsets. So that's a big one. So by removing the windrow clearing program, it allows cities to refocus its resources while supporting longer-term financial stability. Programs that appear workable in limited circumstances do not always scale effectively. So in small scales, it worked really, really well. I know that for a fact because my mother used it and she was really pleased with it. But large scale doesn't really work. So my apologies, and that is it for me. So I just left a really quick one here just to say it had potential when it was $200 and you had to meet a criteria. Now, I'm not saying we should kill it. I am saying that we should maybe amend it because currently it's going to cost us some money, but if we continue to pay X amount of money and we get somebody to come over and do your thing, it might actually be cost neutral, and you might actually make a profit off of it. So I can put together a business case for you if you like.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you very much for your time.
So, as I mentioned at the outset, I was going to be asking the clerk's department to keep a list of suggestions. So your suggestion is to redo or relook at the windrow clearing program? Or is your suggestion to kill it? Because you started off by let's kill it. So I want to make sure it's recorded properly.
Right. I did start by saying kill it.
So
Right?
what is your suggestion?
I'm softening it up to say you could manage it so that it becomes a for-profit opportunity.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but we'll make a note of that.
I'm going to say kill it.
And that's maybe a question we can be asking staff
I'm going
at a
to
future
throw it
meeting.
out there and say I'd like the program to be killed.
But your recommendation is to relook at the windrow clearing
Correct.
program. Okay, we'll make note of that. That's a good suggestion, which I'm sure some members of council will be interested in discussing when we finalize everything.
And thank you very much for, I know you.
That was it, George, for tonight?
That's it for me.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
You've done 4, I know you've done 4 of these, and
Fabulous.
It's got to be killer for you guys.
No, thank you
guys
for
are
coming out
wonderful.
again as always. You follow everything. We appreciate it, so thank you.
Perfect, wonderful. No
Okay, good.
butterflies.
No other questions for Mr. Tavares? Okay. So our next 3 up are Glenn Vokes, August Petrolo, and then Christine Kosmara. So Glenn Vokes. I know Glenn's here. I saw him. Oh, there he is. Okay. Oh, sorry. Can I have someone move to receive the deputation, Councillor Tedjo? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Right. I'm going to forget that all night. Mr. Vokes, over to you, sir.
Okay. My name is Glenn Vokes. I'm not going to give you my address, but you guys all know it anyway, so it doesn't make any difference, right? So good evening, Budget Chair Councillor Butt, Vice Chair Councillor Daskell, Mayor Parrish, and fellow councillors. I do not recall requesting to speak this evening, but I will never turn down an opportunity to do so, as you know. I put together what I am about to say rather quickly, so I hope all is logically laid out. Within what I'm going to say, there are 5 questions that maybe could be recorded and answered after. I provided a number of councillors and the mayor my thoughts and suggestions on the budget and where savings could be researched, some pushing the envelope for sure, sent back in September 2025. I did this at that time to allow these suggestions to be considered during the preparation of the budget, not to bring them forward in the midst of the fury. Other than drawing attention to one suggestion a little further down and a couple of questions, I do not intend to discuss any of those suggestions that are brought forward that evening. You have them, and you can act upon them if you choose to. The most important part, my most important part tonight, I'm not here to challenge the numbers, okay? I'm here to talk about processes. So good people have created this budget, which in itself is a monumental task, huge task. I've done it, maybe not to this extent. I would like to leave you thinking. My main focus will be on processes to effectively manage the execution of a budget, the budget that eventually gets approved, and not about the numbers that make it up. As difficult, frustrating, and time-consuming as it is to prepare a budget, that is by far the easiest part. You are in the easiest part right now, as hard as you may not realize that, as this moment is only talk and kicking tires without the walk yet. It may take place somewhere in the process, but I never hear discussions about risk planning, risk mitigation strategies, or risk contingencies. Unidentified risk is the second biggest contributor to project failure and budget overspending, the number one reason being incomplete requirements gathering or the lack of understanding of the true magnitude of the task that you're taking on. The rubber hits the road delivering on the commitments approved and ensuring there is an ROI. That's a return on investment for taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. Additionally, it is not a success to come in on the dollar commitment of a budget and not meet the commitments of the goals. The ROI, the work is completed for all money spent. In other words, the performance. So you're getting value for what you're spending. Without getting into specifics, there are city projects I'm involved with. I am unclear where the allocated unspent money goes and why there is a lack of delivery on commitments made. Now, these concerns are on projects I involve myself in. Others may be different. I don't know. Can staff address frequency, level of detail, and to whom budget updates are made to at the conclusion of my deputation? I have no doubt there is a process, but I am unaware of same. Making budget management visible to council and taxpayers is important. How well did the 2025 budget go? I'd like to know that. Do we know and where the pain points are and where they documented and lessons learned in 2025? So we've got something to carry through to 2026, 2027, and we just don't keep stepping into the same bear trap. Recently, it was an eye-opening to learn of a new initiative being launched that will require no additional people. Isn't that amazing? No additional people. And council asked no questions how this could be. Not sure how you launch a new initiative that requires no additional staff unless you already are overstaffed. Or is there a deferral of increased labor hours that will be requested to be filled post the launch? Will I come back? Again, these questions need to be asked, and they are not. There must be transparency, and someone must be accountable for success or failure of all projects. The dollars, the budget, the performance, the work completed. I had one suggestion included in my emails I would like you to keep in mind going forward. That's an evaluation of where AI could be used to streamline work and significantly reduce costs. AI is now the norm across many major business operations and is reducing costs from tens to hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Like it or not, it is the future. Don't be left looking in the rearview mirror. A personal example I use with the city. I used to call 311 to ask a question and get a response. On hold to the call being answered, and on hold while assistant retrieved an answer in the background, and often being told someone would reach back out to me. Now I use ChatGPT, and I get my answer in less than 1 minute, and I'm not tying up any staff resources. Experiment with it. Invite your IT department to set up a small pilot project, and keep in mind, if it is put into use, it will improve over today's results as it learns over time, and it gets better, and it gets more effective. consider AI and the cost reduction and efficiencies it could provide. I was able to watch this morning's presentation, which included public transportation. Where am I on time here? I'm good, okay. Let me make it clear I do not use public transportation other than traveling in Europe and Asia. What I see there, and do use, is amazing and full networks made up of multiple modes of transportation. This is a target to shoot for. Hell, if Doug Ford can build a tunnel under the 401, why can't we connect the subway from Kipling to Square One? Another point with respect to buses, and let me be clear, matching demand up to time must be one hell of a job. I wouldn't want it, I wouldn't relish it. However, in my area of Lisgar, I see what I call tandem buses, or pups, constantly driving, nearly empty, or in some cases empty. For your information, the city has a different name for these buses, so I am using distribution terms when I say tandem pups. I called Mississauga Transportation and I asked the question what the need was for tandem buses in Lisgar, and asked the question about operating cost. I was told the tandems do have higher operating costs and are needed for rush hour. There are no rush hours in Lisgar. Haven't seen one yet, hope I never see one. I suggest that even when there are rush hours, swap them in and out at peak times. I will leave it up to whomever to look at this if they choose. And lastly, driverless buses. Has the city been looking at these, or shuttle buses? Both of these modes are being used today in 4 cities, a stone throw away from where I'm standing. Okay? Ask ChatGPT. It'll tell you. Many presentations yesterday and this morning talked about savings or cost reduction. I ask if these savings figures are net of cost to realize them. In other words, are we really saving that much money, or is it costing us money to save that money, so the net savings is not what is being projected by staff? Lastly, from my involvement level, I find what I feel is an excessive use of consultants, and I'm shocked to see just now 13.9% increase in the 2026 budget for consultants. Wow. Can the city provide the number of consultants in use and the percentage of cost to their cost plus city resource cost? What's it costing us to have consultants? Why do we have consultants? I'm not saying that there isn't a use of consultants, but why so many? Using consultants should be selectively necessary. Keep in mind, when consultants leave, the knowledge leaves with them. It walks out the front door with them. You're left holding the bag. And not all consulting companies operate the same. There's one particular project here at the city where consultants are engaged to put a plan together for the city. However, the city must assume the risk of executing the plan. Execution in the past has been a weak spot with regard to the nature of this type of work. Enough said. Say no more. Hopefully I've given you some food for thought. I don't care about the numbers. Well, I care about the numbers, but I'm not going to talk about the numbers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. And maybe staff could answer those 5 questions that I had in my speech or my talk or my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vokes. Did staff want to make any comments on any of those things tonight, or are we just going, I mean, AI was one, some of the bus stuff, use of consultants, that kind of thing?
Well, one, if I can, I'll recap. One was, how is the budget presented? Like, my understanding, and I certainly always stand to be corrected because there are times I'm wrong. Ask my wife. She'll tell you, right? Many times I'm wrong. But my understanding is that once this budget gets approved, staff takes it, and you're not involved anymore.
That's not true. We have a
Okay,
budget
so
committee
you
that
can
meets.
correct that then.
Anyway,
for
okay,
me.
well, I think we've got your 5 points. We'll turn it over to the CAO to start, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Go
how
ahead.
did the 2025 budget work out? Did we meet it? Did we exceed it? Okay. And what were the pain points? That's 3.
Yeah, use of AI and consultants.
And then
Okay.
AI,
Yep.
okay? And then the last one was the net, are the savings projected net, okay, or real?
Okay, over to the CAO to start.
I'll go
Thank
sit
you.
down. My knees are bad.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in response to the questions from the deputy. And so I'll start, and I'll look to my colleague Marissa, our CFO, to provide some additional context. So in terms of how the budget is presented, I think, Mr. Chair, you've acknowledged that this is part of that process in terms of presenting and the 2026 budget. Once it's adopted, the 2026 budget, then we go into operationalizing that budget. So there's a series of budget committee meetings throughout the year where we would present our quarterly operating statistics, which give a summary of the spends in that quarter, but also an outlook towards the end of that year. So we are also looking to provide the 2025 year-end operating summary in the not-too-distant future. So I think one of the questions was how did we do last year, but that's going to be coming up as part of the 2025 year-end operating. We also do similar with capital. So we also have a capital works in progress report that comes to Budget Committee and ultimately Council that looks at the spends of our capital dollars and through that process looks to adjust the capital spending within that year. Sometimes we return money, sometimes we look for additional funding. But it is a process that is a going concern in terms of how we manage both the operating and the capital throughout the year and the role of the Budget Committee. One of the questions, there was a lot of transit operating questions in there in terms of the use of buses. And I think Glenn mentioned that, he has had conversations with transit around that. But we do put out 60-foot articulated buses where demand warrants. And it is sometimes from a scheduling perspective, those buses go out with the operator, and so they don't come back to the garage. Sometimes they do come back to the garage. So it is an operational process that is undertaken to provide the most efficiency in the use of that. AI is being used within Mississauga. We do have an internal Microsoft Copilot program that we've launched recently for staff, and for councillors as well. So we are able to access the use of AI in our decision making and our report preparation. So we are in early journey of that, and we're working on an AI policy, and that will be coming back to council in the not too distant future of how we govern the use of AI within the city limits. In terms of consultants, we do hire a number of consultants, whether it's to assist us in design on our capital projects. We did hire a consultant to work on things like our strategic plan as an example. So I'll have to turn that over to our CFO to provide more context in terms of the scale of consultant use, or maybe perhaps that's something we can come back with if we don't have the answer that's there. And I think I've captured it, but if I haven't, I'll turn it over to Marissa if there's anything else that she wants to add to that response.
Yes, thank you, Jeff, through the chair. So in response to the question from Mr. Vokes about the actual versus budget in terms of how we materialize the budget, we do bring back quarterly reports on our actual financial operations and results compared to budget. Obviously, when he asked about, how the budget is being implemented, that's based on our projections and estimates. But we do provide our financial performance every 3 months. Our next one's going to be on the 2025 year, so that will show how we have budgeted compared to the actual results. In terms of the consultants and contractors, I believe he's referring to the pie chart that Faraz has put on screen to show the contractors' breakdown, and there has been an increase, but a lot of our vendors are included in that percentage, but we can definitely provide a breakdown of that increase and what type of projects those relate to in a future meeting. And with regards to AI, I actually do manage the AI department, and we are currently in the discovery foundational phase of AI. We just implemented a AI guideline at the city. So we're still in the initial stages, and currently we're still working out a lot of the legal concerns and other costs and data management issues. Our goal right now is really just looking at augmenting our technology and human capabilities instead of replacing staff. So I wouldn't say that implementing AI will create an immediate reduction in our staffing costs, but that's something that we are going to be looking into in the long term through automation and other AI strategies.
Okay, thank you very much. Were there any other members of the committee that wish to weigh in at this stage? If not, Councillor McFadden, would you move receipt of the deputation, considering Mr. Vokes is your constituent? Thank you. Thank you very much. All in favor? That's great. Carried. All right, we will move on. So it's August Petrolo, Christine, Councillor DeMorla, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question to staff, to the clerk. Yeah. Can you, Diana, just clarify for everybody what our rules are around having to state your address? Because I think some people might not be comfortable giving out their address, so maybe we can just clarify what the rules are. Thank you.
The address is not required at Budget Committee.
Yep, I did say if you are comfortable, was my point. I'm trying to make sure that it's only residents of the city of Mississauga that are making deputations tonight. That was my point. But that's fine. You do not have to provide your home address if you do not wish to do so. So August Petrolo, Christina Cosmara, and then Robert DeRoche. So this must be August. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I am August Petrolo, and for the record, I was not going to give my address, but I am in Ward 3, Cooksville, and Councillor Fonseca is aware of me as being one of her constituents. To the Honourable Mayor Parish, councillors and Budget Committee members, I wanted to first and foremost thank you for your time today as we take the time to discuss the proposed 2026 budget and the impacts on the community as a whole. I wasn't privy to the first presenter's slides info, which actually probably answered one or two of my questions that I'm going to ask, but I garnered my info from the public documents that I was able to obtain. But according to your own recent correspondence, and I quote, the proposed 2026 budget attempts to balance the need to provide quality services with the need to minimize the cost to taxpayers. Significant efforts were made to mitigate the proposed property tax increase, including a reduction of the capital infrastructure and debt repayment levy and the public safety fire program. City staff were also tasked to scrutinize spending across all service areas, which resulted in a reduction to the budget of 2.33%, which is always appreciated. In order to address cost increases from inflation and other external impacts, property tax increases are required if service levels are to be maintained. For 2026, the city is proposing a 1.61% property tax increase, which is lower than the 10-year average. When combined with the Region Appeals approved Mississauga specific increase of 3.6%, the overall property tax increase for 2026 is proposed to be 5.21%, which has been outlined this evening. My questions to you are, in the proposed 2026 budget, the city is using $33 million from reserves. The dollar amount was confirmed tonight by the first presenter. The public safety fire program levy is paused and the capital infrastructure and debt repayment levy is reduced from 3% to 1%. Does the city have a clear plan to put the $33 million back into the reserves? And if so, when and how? As reserves are replenished, what should residents expect to see in their property taxes in the coming years? And what should businesses expect in their taxes? Is this a one-year adjustment, or will it affect taxes over multiple years? When the paused fire levy and the reduced infrastructure levy return to their plan levels, what will this mean for residents? Will tax increases be higher in 2027 and 2028 to make up for what was delayed in 2026? And how exactly will these levies be reinstated? This again was confirmed in the first presenter's slides. If these steps result in lower taxes in the short term, but higher taxes in future years, how does that align with long-term affordability? Does the fact that it's an election year actually come into play? I want to put up a slide that actually, if I can get that up on the main. So this is to the chair members of the Budget Committee, from Jeff Wright, who's here tonight. the use of reserves and reserve funds to offset budget impacts, reserves and reserve funds are established by council, with funding set aside to finance specific capital purposes and unforeseen operating expenditures in order to minimize the impact to the tax rate. Historically, the use of city reserves has been to offset unforeseen costs, such as the COVID-19 pandemic or extreme weather events, and not to reduce the impacts of the tax levy as part of the process. The use of the reserves and reserve funds without a corresponding reduction in spending would result in a higher tax rate impact in future years if it remained a reoccurring annual expense, such as winter maintenance. Staff review the city's reserve and reserve fund balances annually to ensure targets are appropriate, and they are forecasted for a minimum of 10 years. The oversight and management of reserves and reserve funds support the financing of the capital program, longer-term planning strategies, and is looked upon favorably by credit rating agencies in assessing the city's overall financial health. So in putting that up, you can see your own city manager and chief administrative officer has concerns about using the reserves to offset tax increases. So I have 6 questions that I'm going to put up here that some of them, again, have been answered this evening in the first presenter's dialogue, but ultimately, I'd like to know, for the residents that are struggling, a delayed increase is still an increase. If reserves are used again in future budgets to manage tax increases, how many times can that happen before it raises concerns about the city's long-term financial stability? Has council considered how repeated reserve use combined with delayed levies might be viewed by credit rating agencies over time? Even if a single year does not cause concern, what would eventually happen? Finally, given the size of the recent tax increases, why were these same tools not used during last year's 9.2% increase, when the blended tax rate could have been reduced by roughly 4%? I'm asking for clarity. Short-term relief makes sense, but only if it does not create larger affordability problems later, not to mention reserve fund shortfalls, as temporary as they may be.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the CAO want to weigh in on that, and then maybe with the help of the CFO? But I'll turn it over to Jeff first, and then I see the mayor's on the board too.
Mr. Chair, did you want the mayor to speak first, or did you want staff to speak first?
Would you like to speak first, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, I
You're
would like
welcome
to. I
Okay.
agree with you. I think if you make severe cuts this year and they come back to haunt you next year, it's not a good thing. One of the things we realized and we've worked on, several mayors have tried to separate Mississauga out of the region of Peel. Several times it's been attempted and it's been failing. What we have done as a council is we've separated out and gotten the province to agree on some pretty big expense items. When we go to the region of Peel, our tax split with the region is 58% of everything. So what we need to do is bring down the things here to the local municipality that we can save money on. For example, waste pickup. At the region, they have something like 63 people supervising the companies that we give the contracts to who have their own supervisors. We've calculated we can do it with 6 people. So we are downloading waste management, we're downloading roads if they ever make up their mind on the date. We've downloaded planning, and we're working right now, we have a consultant looking at starting our own police department, so we're not subsidizing Brampton the way we are right now, 6238. So in answer to your question, we know for sure 4 of these things will be downloaded over the next 2 years. And we know for sure we'll be saving 30, 48, about 60 million a year by taking those out of the region and handling them ourselves. So we're not stupid. We know if we cut too hard this year with no prospect of replacing it, we're doing a disservice to all the taxpayers. We don't plan to do that. As far as last year, Peel Regional Police came in at 23.3% increase. That translated to 6% on the regional tax bill for Mississauga because we carry that weight. We are also looking at splitting off our own police force or in fact coming up with a different formula to pay them. But last year there was nothing we could do about it. They hit us with it, we had to take it. And we can't change it. This year, Councillor Mahoney, Deputy Mayor Mahoney sits on Police Services Board and he got them down under 10%. But it was a struggle. He had a lot more hair before he started. So we understand what you're saying, and you have to trust us that we do have concrete plans. They've already gone through bills at the province to give us those subject areas so we can save money.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, maybe we can get the CAO and or CFO to comment on, I think a lot of his questions had to do with the reserve funds and allocating reserve fund money out of the tax stabilization reserve to lower or keep a property tax level lower. So do you want to comment on those comments for August? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, and I think the mayor sort of alluded to a lot of the financial relief we will be getting in the short term related to the regional services that will be coming to the city of Mississauga. In addition to the reserve, the fiscal stability reserve that we're proposing to use for 2026, the deputant also noted a number of levies that we're either pausing or reducing. And I think we've spent a lot of time as staff looking at how we can manage that. So, you know, pausing the fire levy for 1 year makes sense because we've done a lot of work to date. We've had a lot of success with the fire levy. We've built a lot of new fire stations. We've renovated a lot of new fire stations. Our capital plan continues in fire, as you heard earlier today, in terms of our design and renovation and build of new fire stations. So we can pause that for 1 year and continue with that levy in future years to continue getting to the outcome that we desire in terms of the number of fire stations in Mississauga. So we're pretty confident that we can manage that levy pause. The other reduction was in our capital infrastructure levy, and yes, there is an impact to that. And that impact was shared through the various service area business plans in terms of some of the projects that are being deferred to future dates. And again, a lot of credit goes to the staff that have worked on our capital plans over the years to look at the timing of those capital plans and what the impact of those would be in our capital budget. So we've outlined that through the service area business plans in terms of the impact to the capital budget in terms of that infrastructure deferral. Now, we did acknowledge that we are proposing to put those capital levies for fire and infrastructure back in future business plans and budgets because they are required to fund our infrastructure, unless there's a significant change in terms of how infrastructure is funded within municipalities. So perhaps I'll turn it over to our CFO to provide some more context around the use of the reserves and our levies as questioned.
Thanks, Jeff. So I think Mayor Parrish and Jeff have already covered most of what needs to be said. In terms of fiscal stability reserve, I just want to highlight, actually in our budget, under the definition of our fiscal stability reserve, it is used to cover unforeseen or uncertain liabilities relating to labor settlements, any assessment appeals, legal settlements, and other commitments. So just wanted to highlight again that 2026 is an anomaly. We had all of our labor union agreements ratify in the same year. This is very, unusual. I mean, typically it's spread out a little bit more, and the increases are not as high, but because of the compounding impacts of the multi-year agreement increases, we had a substantial increase in labor increases, which we're using the FSR, the reserve, to cover some of that, and we don't anticipate this will happen again next year. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Fonseca.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much for being here, August, and for the questions. Just perhaps, I think the Mayor and City Manager and CFO have touched on all of your questions, but perhaps either City Manager or CFO could also highlight the fact that under the Municipal Act, it limits the amount, which is set by the province, it limits the amount of debt, because you referenced, August, our credit rating as a city, and we have always had, as long as I can remember, even well before my time on council, an excellent credit rating, and under the Municipal Act, it limits the amount of debt that any city can hold, and our city, so the debt repayment costs must remain within 25% of own source revenue. And our policy in the city of Mississauga is actually, we've set it at 15%, but the reality is, over the years, we have, this council and with the due diligence of staff, remained well below even the city's own policy. And if you look, because your question about planning into the future from 2026 beyond, even if you look at that, the proposal is that debt also remains well below the 15%, which is the city's own policy. So maybe either Jeff or Marissa can explain that a little bit more, just to the question about August's question about our credit rating as a city.
Through the chair to Councillor Fonseca, thank you for the question. So yes, we do. We have achieved the AAA credit rating for decades, and they usually do look at a number of factors. So in terms of our reserves position and our, forward-looking financial position, they do look at that. At this point in time, I would say we are in a very good financial position because we still have a very healthy reserves balance in general, and we carry very little debt in terms of, our percentage is way lower than even our city imposed cap, so we are way below that. So I don't foresee there's going to be any issue with regards to our credit rating as long as we continue to maintain our reserves position moving forward. The reserves reduction is a one-time measure, so we're not going to be doing this every single year. And as long as we keep that as a one-time measure, it would not have any impact to our credit rating.
Okay. Thank you very much. Was there anything else? No? Councillor Fonseca, you'll move receipt of the deputant. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, August, for coming. So our next three are Christine Cosmera, Robert DeRoche, and then it'll be Athena Tagadou and Mike Harris. So Christine, over to you. Welcome.
Much. Thank you, Mayor Parrish, Council, and all the people that turned out. I was going to start off saying, because I heard a lot of people that I know, I've volunteered for 20 years in the city of Mississauga in a variety of ways. I've heard them say, why bother? The decision's made, nobody's going to listen. But I'm here because I do feel you will listen. I've been a resident here since 1991, and both my husband and I are retired, so we're on a pension. And we live in Ward 3, as Chris Fonseca can attest to. I do appreciate the budget meetings. I did attend, and they were helpful. I do want to thank you for understanding residents' concerns and getting your property tax portion to 1.6. But I want you to understand my reality and the residents' reality. It's not 1.6, it's 5.21. So it's quite a bit larger. The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, when you compare what the taxes have gone up year over year, you're well above that. So for me, as a pensioner, most of the time pensions increase by whatever the CPI is, it's 2%. So it's not sustainable for residents when salaries and our pension increase by such a small amount in comparison to what our taxes do. The 1.6 is wonderful, but that's not what we're having to pay. It's not sustainable, and I just wanted to also point out that, there's quite a housing initiative. I know the mayor has a housing initiative, which is wonderful, but I've also heard young people mention that housing costs are one thing, the mortgage rate is another thing, but your taxes are another thing too. if it's above a certain amount, it also creates difficulty with affordability. So I need you to, I'm sure you're aware of that, but I wanted to say that. I'm concerned about the sustainability of this budget with the levies being reduced. I'm concerned about the reserve fund being used, and I know you've spoken to that already. So, but when I look at your operational budget for projection, the 4-year projection online, on that, I think it's a like 334-page budget that you have put out, and it says for 2027, you're projecting a 5.5% increase. I know that's a placeholder, and that's a guesstimate. And then I look at the Peel Region budget, and they're estimating 6.3% property tax increase. I'm not going to add the two. The 6.3 is on 45% of city taxes, so I know it needs to be blended. But I guess I'm asking, where are we going with this? I do appreciate the decrease that this council has done. I do appreciate what position you're in with Peel Region. But as a resident, it's like the Canadian government saying, well, it's the provincial government saying it's the Canadian government. The fingers are being pointed. As a resident, at this point, I don't mean to be disrespectful, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, I'm forced to pay more money out of my household. I have to find that money. And so my concern is, where are we going with all this? I'm not 100% certain about how you do your budget, but as a household, we have only so much money. And when we're asked for more money for property taxes, we have to find that money. I'm not sure how it works at the city level. Like, you have so much money, I'm not sure why it is that we have to have a property tax rate between you and Peel Region that's well above CPI. It's just not sustainable for us. And I'd like to stay in Mississauga as long as I can.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. Were there any members of committee that had any questions or comments? Councillor Mahoney, you'll move a receipt of the deputation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. So our next three are Robert DeRoche, then Athena and Mike, and then Kim Pines. So Robert, you're up.
Yes, thank you very much. Robert DeRoche, I, resident of Ward 4, live at 320 Karen Park Crescent. Anybody can come and visit me. Most of my presentation was based on the reserve fund, which I think has been handled and answered most of my questions on the reserve fund. But my impression of the reserve fund was it's set aside during the budget year for unseen emergencies, whether it be capital, whether it be operating where the revenues aren't, stuff. Not a one-time charge to reduce the budget. That was my impression. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't know. Okay. But I'll give you a little bit of history. We lived at 320 Karen Park Crescent for 42 years. All right? When Hazel McCallion was mayor and the city was awash with money, she basically didn't increase the taxes a lot, right? She held them steady, maybe $36 a year here, there, or whatever it is, because I've got all my tax bills from 1982, just kept them. Most of the increases were due to the impact with the rise of the assessment of the properties, all right? However, she kept them low. She reduced the percentage rate of the city portion of the tax bill. But what is missing out of this whole thing is the 3.7% increase in the stormwater charge. And it was on one of the slide, which is an additional cost. In our case, it's almost $150 more on our house. Maybe it's going to be more than that, 160. Now, it didn't start as a stormwater charge. It started as a levy, a rain tax, if you want to call it, or whatever. So there's another expense that is not included into the tax budget, but it's, I'm not saying hidden, I'm just saying it's put away on the side on your water bill. And I'm talking to a lot of people that they don't even realize they're paying that stormwater charge, right? And that money goes right to the city. Okay? Also on one of the page 3, now it's interesting when you do the when you do the calculations for dollars. You know, a home assessed at $100,000, the increase is $53.91. All right. Now I have no idea where there's a $100,000 home in Mississauga is. All right. So the average impact assessment of a home in Mississauga is $730,000, and that translates to almost $400 in additional taxes that we have to pay this year. All right. So that's another thing that nobody has even mentioned or hidden. Okay. But I think one thing that you should do is you got to direct staff to get back to basics. Let's just get back to basics on this thing. None of these niceties that have gone in. One example was just recently, there was a presentation on Central Parkway. There's going to be a road rehabilitation on Central Parkway. Fine, the road has to be redone, it's got to be repaved, it's got to be redone. You want to reduce the lane sizes, whatever it is. But they want to put in traffic circles. Why put in a traffic circle with the additional capital money that's going to cost, but you have lights there? And those lights are working perfectly at Central Parkway in Bloor, at Central Parkway in Cliff, and Central Parkway in Bloor. Some of that stuff has got to sort of maybe get toned down, not the nicest to have anymore at this time. So in other words, why fix something that isn't broke? Okay, so that's basically it. I was a bit longer, but the reserve fund was there. But I just want this council to just picture something here, okay? You got a pair of pants, and you've got 4 pockets, left, right, 2 in the back. Okay? The left pocket, the good old federales take it. The feds take their cut. The right pocket, the province takes the cut. The left pocket, all of a sudden the city and the region take the cut. It takes their cut, which leaves the right pocket for me to live on. Now, pretty soon, if things keep on going like this, that right pocket ain't going to have anything. So anyways, I just want to thank you very much. I'm not going to take any more time. Have a nice evening.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Robert. Councillor Hornick is on the board, and I do want staff to talk about the stormwater charge because that's the first deputant that's raised that one. So I'll let Councillor Hornick go first, and then maybe we can have some comments on the stormwater charge, how that works, and et cetera. Anyway, Councillor Hornick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just actually going to remind Hazel was the one who brought in the stormwater charge, just because you liked her so much.
I don't care who brought it in.
And I did want to give staff the opportunity to talk about that. Same with staff may want to mention about the road projects too. You know, I think one of the challenges we have is a city that gets more congested. One of the reasons you put in traffic calming circles is they have constant flow, right? There's no stoplights. It's also more safe because any accidents that occur are at angles. But anyways, I think the other thing I was just going to mention, you started by mentioning about reserves. The one aspect I think maybe I would just elaborate a little bit further on, which is we have 2 kinds of reserves too. We have dedicated reserves and we have non-dedicated reserves. So we've talked a lot about the non-dedicated reserves tonight, but I guess one other thing I just ask if people are going through the budget, one of the things we do when we have dedicated reserves, and this was a misunderstanding, even the Premier misunderstood about municipalities. He said, I don't understand. These cities, they have so much money in the bank accounts. One of the things we do is we don't pay for a bridge in 1 year. We take 20 years where we save a little bit, and then we put it in the account and we save it for that day when we finally refurbish a bridge. So there's that aspect of reserves that isn't kind of relevant to the part that we're we're borrowing from right now. But I wanted to put that out there. If people look at the large numbers of reserves we have out there, that's why they're there. They're for the project that's going to come 5 years and 10 years and 20 years down the road. So I just thought I'd do that. But if staff could elaborate on the stormwater side, I think that'd be helpful. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the deputant. So yes, I'll start with the stormwater charge. I'll hand it off to Emma for some more details as she presented our stormwater service area presentation today. And then I'll come back and speak about road safety, in particular roundabouts at the Central Parkway, as the deputant said. So the increase to the stormwater charge was contemplated by Budget Committee earlier this year during, last year, during fees and charges. And that increase was a 4%. That was, you know, a larger increase than in years past, but the large majority of that was used to fund our, you know, flood mitigation action plan. So that is what the deputant was referring to on the 3.7% stormwater charge. I'll hand it off to Emma if she's got anything else, and then I'll come back and speak about our road safety initiatives.
Thanks, Sam, through the chair. Just for all the residents in the room, my name is Emma Calvert. I'm the Director of Infrastructure Planning and Engineering Services, and the stormwater team is part of the division, part of my division. Just to add to what Sam said, typically in the past couple of years, our stormwater charge has increased by the rate of inflation in line with many of our other fees and charges, which is this past year and previous years has been 3%. We did increase the stormwater charge to 4%, but that 1% difference on the average residential home in Mississauga, I've got the number here, is $1.28, is the difference between a 3% increase and a 4% increase. So over the course of the year, the difference in price for the average homeowner, I think is 80% of the homes in Mississauga. It's one billing unit is how we work our stormwater charge. It works to be about $5. And I just, sorry, Sam, I should just add that that is a dedicated fund that goes into funding specifically the stormwater infrastructure and our flood mitigation and erosion control projects in the city. That money isn't used for anything else. It's just to support our stormwater program.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. And just with respect to the deputant's comments around roundabouts, citing specifically at Central Parkway. So that is an area that we are looking at. One size doesn't fit all, and where there is an opportunity to look at, you know, installing roundabouts, we will do that from a road safety perspective. However, we do that when under our integrated road project program. So, you know, typically road rehabilitation sort of triggers a review. We would not really ever go in and just simply remove the traffic signals and the intersection and start designing and installing a roundabout. What would be triggered is the road pavement condition, and once we go in to, you know, bring that, tear that up and put in new curbs and asphalt, we take the opportunity to be the most efficient and effective as possible and look at all things within the right-of-way, and that includes street lighting, signals, intersection, making sure that, you know, the latest design standards are there from a road safety and speed mitigation perspective. And that's the process we're doing for Central.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor DeMerla.
I think it might be interesting to understand when you do the road rehabilitation and you have the choice between putting in a roundabout or going back to the traffic lights, is there a cost difference per installation? Like, what would that be? Would it be $5,000? Would it be $50,000? Like, what would that difference be? Or would it be the same?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have to confirm that, Councillor, and happy to put that on the board and come back around to Budget Committee with what the cost difference is between the two.
Okay. Oh, Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emma, would you mind explaining to the deputant about all of the preventative measures that the stormwater charge has enabled for the residents that have certainly been affected by the severe back-to-back storms and 15 to 20 years of severe flooding, where some of the residents have been flooded sometimes 6 times, lost all their contents, can't get insurance in their homes. So maybe you can just explain some of the things that this council put in so that the residents that have been affected for years can now have, the sump pumps and whatever have you.
Absolutely, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor and to the residents in the room. You're right, the stormwater charge does provide us a dedicated fund to support the capital programs that go into all of our flood mitigation and stormwater, to be able to maintain a resilient stormwater system. But specifically, we've approved some financial relief rebates for the residents. We did have a compassionate grant immediately following the storms in 2024. And since then, we have 2 additional financial relief programs that will still continue into 2026. One of them is the basement flood prevention rebate, which allows homeowners to take advantage of installing some flood prevention products in their basement, like sump pumps, disconnecting downspouts, disconnecting their connection of the laterals to the storm sewer. And additionally, we have another one, a flood resilience rebate, which allows homeowners who've experienced flooding to make changes to their own homes to make them more flood resilient, hopefully lessen the impact of, if there were to be a flood in the future, lessen the impact of damage to their home, and they can seek funding rebates from the city for those costs.
Thank you. I hope that answers some of your questions about the stormwater surcharge. I personally, and I know there's probably 4 other councillors on this council that feel terribly for our residents that have suffered over the past 15 to 20 years of flooding. And I'm glad we put that stormwater charge in so that we can help them in some way to change the infrastructure and help them get through this terrible ordeal that they're going through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see Councillor Kovac.
Thank you so much, and through you, Mr. Chair, I had to sneak in at the last second because I wanted to share Mr. Dorosh is really one of the more thoughtful individuals living in Ward 4. I'm trying to butter him up actually at the moment. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and on the Central Parkway East, it's this integrated project that which he had made reference to that's from here, Ontario, up to Burnhamthorpe. Staff had flagged this section as in need of a resurfacing, and so we're looking at it right now. I mean, if we're going to go into the detailed design phase, it's now 2028 with construction being floated for 2029 to 2030. So we're a few years away from it. We still have to do our due diligence and ensure that we're well prepped and ready for it. I know staff ultimately, not saying roundabouts are always better, but in this instance came out on top. If you were to chart it, for these reasons, and so we're looking to modernize that section in addition to ensuring that it's safer and we ensure people move, they move well as well. Yep. So thank you, Mr. Dorosh, and thank you as well as staff.
I just have one more question regarding the hospital tax levy, the levy, sorry, a levy is a tax as far as I'm concerned anyways, of 1% starting in 2029. Is that 1% going to be based on your property assessment?
Marissa, you want to explain how that levy is going to work?
Yes, through the chair. So the 1% is the tax bill impact. So it's very similar to our fire safety program levy or the capital infrastructure levy. It will be 1% increase to the budget that is in the base. So that will be implemented as a 1% increase to the 2029 base budget.
So, sorry, run that by me one more time. So, the simple question, is it going to be based on the assessment of your property? Yes or no?
Yes, the tax increase, well, your property taxes are calculated by 2 key factors. Number 1 is the levy required by the city, and that drives the tax rates. And number 2 is your property assessment value. So whatever the tax rate is, which will increase with the hospital levy, multiplied by your assessment value will be your final taxes owing.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, for coming. Councillor Kovac, did you want to move receipt of the deputation? Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. 7.9, Athena and Mike from the Applewood Hills and Heights Residents Association. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Parrish, members of the city's budget committee, city staff, and to all attendees. Mike and I are here on behalf of the Alpine Hills and Heights Residents Association to address the city's proposed 2026 budget, which, along with the Regional Appeals already approved, makes Mississauga's overall property tax, which we know will be another high increase of 5.21%. This is lower than last year's. However, for many of us, this is a high percentage. At the June 11, 2025 council meeting, during public question period, we asked what action had been taken up to then by council to ensure that the 2026 property tax increase would not be anywhere near the 9.2% that we had of 2025. We understand what happened with the police budget. We are aware of that and regional appeal. However, we did not want to see something like that repeat. So we felt that it was important for the city to have taken action to not allow that to continue. We, along with all residents of Mississauga, were advised to attend the city's 2026 budget meetings, as well as the Peel Police Board meeting and regions, to give our input and express our concerns regarding this issue. Slide 2, please. Oh, I do it? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry about that. I haven't done this for a long time. Okay. So what we did, we appreciate this direction, and we followed it exactly. We created a budget review committee in September, and we then attended the previous city budget. We reviewed the previous city budgets. We attended the council-hosted meetings, which we're very grateful to all councillors for hosting them, and we believe there's one virtual one being hosted tomorrow. We ourselves, an association, also hosted an AHR community budget meeting on November the 3rd, and to which we sincerely appreciate the attendance of both CFO Marissa Chu and Budget Committee Chair Councillor Brad Butt, who provided informative presentations and addressed our questions. Mike also presented at the Peel Police Board on October 24th and the Regional Appeals First 2026 budget meeting on November 25th. We attended, we watched, we listened, we reviewed documents, we shared with our residents, and we continue to do this. We are doing our part as a residents association to support the city's efforts to share updated budget information with our community as best and as much as possible. Now, after learning how the Peel Police portion and all that and Region of Peel, we decided to create this chart. So we have the numbers right in front of us, and all these numbers are confirmed by the city and regional staff. So what we see is every year what has been happening in our increases, and where we are now at 39.01% in only 8 years, So we have learned a great deal, and we know that there's much more to learn. However, as was mentioned at yesterday's public question period by Mr. Chris Mackey, the city's proposed budget was released only last Tuesday and allows residents this very short window of only 1 week to view a 334-page document and to try to understand it all and question, if needed, along with, ask questions based on what we would like to see amended to offset the proposed increase. Respectfully, is this appropriate amount of time? Is this a reasonable amount of time to give us as residents? Where we're still trying to understand the budget, most of us. We've done our homework and we're doing as much as we can. But for most people, what is the expectation for us within 6-7 days to understand such a document? Now we are here today to share with you that we appreciate the 2026 proposed city portion of 1.61% levy. However, we are deeply concerned. Why are we concerned and our community concerned? For 2 reasons. Number one, as it says here, our overall property tax increase from 2019 to now is just only 8 years, is almost 40% at 39.1. And the second, and I would say very importantly, why is this 2026 increase low at 1.61? It's because it's an election year. The slide shows the overall increases for the 3 areas and what we as residents must pay. It's very disappointing, to be honest, to be in a position where we as residents are being told, well, we are going to make this budget as good as best as we can, as low as we can, because it's an election year. So why? Can you please go to the next? I have to do that. Okay. The next slide. Right. So here we are so we went back to 2017 and said, okay, is there a pattern here? So yeah, there is a pattern. Only during 2022 there was the COVID impact, so of course there was a bit of they didn't maybe follow this pattern. However, 2026, look how they were from 2023 up to 2025, and now 2026 is at 5.21 what's being proposed. And next year, as was mentioned earlier by another deputant, the cities alone is 5.5%. And with the regions, what are we going to be at 10%? It's not an election year, so we won't have anything to really work towards. So this is a very important concern. Perhaps then every year should be an election year, so that there's greater effort by council and everyone to ensure our tax dollars are used as efficiently as possible by the city, by Peel Police, and the region. The fact that 2026 is an election year should in no way be any different. What will happen in the upcoming years? Are the funds to make up for all the deferred city plans? Are the funds taken from reserves? What if we have another major snowstorm for the next couple of years, ice storm or flooding? After 2026, is 2030 our next year where we will see a much lower property tax increase? And respectfully, once again, and I really mean this respectfully because I know most of you and I really do respect all of you, do you really think that we don't get it? Like, we do get it, and we feel like you're joking with us. And this is not right. Because we really do our best, and all of our residents association, including Myrinet and all the other community groups, we do this on a volunteer basis, so we really care, and that's why we're here, including all the residents who are here today, to be present, to make it known that we are very, very concerned. Now, I would also like to share with you very briefly, because Mike will also speak, that we had comments from our residents I just want to share with you. This is what they're saying. This is clear on an election year budget. The increase is being kept low using the reserve funds. Increase in the following 2 years will probably be 10%. Why are you using the reserve fund? What other costs, forget that. What is the mayor doing to lobby the provincial government to get Brampton to pay their fair share? And we are familiar with this. I'm just bringing it forward, Mayor Parrish, because it was brought forward to us by a resident, but we do know that you are making great effort with the province. We do know that, and we appreciate it, so please understand that. And this will be explained to the resident, absolutely. And another key concern is about our safety and what is being done with the crime that's driving the police budget. And also about the crime and changing the Young Offenders Act with the federal government. So, slide 3, please.
It's you.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's me again. Sorry about that. So, what we need is consistent effort with each year by council and city staff to ensure maximum attention on city expenses in keeping our annual property taxes locked to CPI as low at a minimum each year. So Mike will continue from this point.
Thank you, Athena. Mike Harris, Ward 7, Madam Mayor, councillors, commissioners. I want to thank you for the reduction in our city Mississauga property taxes. It's much appreciated. Unfortunately, it seems like it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, but we've been through that earlier. One of the things we were hoping for was a reduction in expenses. It seems like what we've seen over the years is council and the City of Mississauga Region Appeal has a spending problem. You spend a ton of money. You spend more money than you're bringing in. It's not sustainable. So you ask us for ideas for reducing spending, and I'll give you a few. Some are small, some are a little larger. There's $2.8 million for trees. I walk my dog in the morning and I see all kinds of trees with 2 stakes and a green gator bag over it. I don't understand this. My understanding is it's $500 a tree, $2.8 million. I think trees can grow on their own. I'm not sure they need a green garbage bag. I don't think they've been around that long. Trees have been around for a while. I live close to Cawthron, Queensway. There's a park there called Mohawk Park where there's 300 to 400 new trees that were planted about 2 years ago. And guess how many have green garbage bags around, green gator bags? None. They've planted, they're growing, they don't need $500 steaks and garbage bags. So things like that, I think, a little bit extravagant.
Mike, I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Chair. Sidewalks. In my area alone, $10 million in sidewalks. In my area alone, there's umpteen examples of not just changing one slab, concrete slabs, 8, 10, 12, and 15 in a row. Excessive. It's extravagant. It's not necessary. Park signs. This is very minor. You walk around and see a City of Mississauga park sign, a 3 foot by 5 foot, 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch piece of tin. They have 6 by 6 inch posts into the ground. 6 by 6 posts. I used to build fences and decks. It's overkill. You don't need 6 by 6 posts. Similar to Queensway, where they built that a fence for the soundproofing. They have 12 by 12 posts. Those are excessive. Fines and penalties. I recently got a speeding ticket going 42 in a 30 zone. I went to court. They dropped my fine in half. Why are you dropping it in half? I'm very happy, but why cutting it in half? Take off 10%, take 20% off. If you've done the crime, then you pay the fee. I'm not sure why we're cutting it in half. Again, I think it's revenue. We need some revenue. What about crossing guards? Again, it's minor. Have we asked for volunteers for crossing guards? These people get paid. Have we asked for volunteers? It's an idea. You ask for ideas, some ideas. Not sure I want to get into housing because it's probably a hornet's nest.
Okay, Mike, you and Athena are well over your 10 minutes. So I am going to cut you off because we do have a couple of councillors that I think would like to ask questions. Sure. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both for coming today. And I certainly do appreciate that you have made many efforts, and I know you did come to Police Board, and we've had a couple discussions about that. I just did want to double down or address some of the issues, and I know, Althena, that you said that you've heard some of this before. Before I do that, though, Mike, I just want to say, I think on the court systems or tickets, I think that's a provincial court that has nothing to do with us. So we're not the ones who actually reduce the fines, but that's a small part of it. And sidewalks are also a bit of a trip hazard. Councillor Reid and I sit on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and accessible sidewalks and movement is part of AODA, which is also provincial legislation, so we have to make sure that those sidewalks are passable and accessible. But those are just some of the small things. But I did just want to mention again, and I know Mayor Parrish had said it, so a lot of the work that the Mayor has been doing and this council has been doing is with the provincial government to change some of the regional services. So regional roads, as I believe was addressed before, is something that is being downloaded, which will save us significant millions of dollars to our taxpayers in Mississauga. Also the waste management collection, which is mainly managing contracts. I believe the Mayor did talk about the number of people that are there, will be saving us millions of dollars. So the money that you're talking about that we're using, we are catching up on with other areas. That legislation has been passed through royal assent, and the provincial government has acknowledged and admitted, or not admitted, but has acknowledged that those services will be coming down. So those savings to our taxpayers will be seen. So these are why we're making the decisions that we are. The other thing, and the final thing I will say is we as a council are listening. We understand last year was a horrendous budget. We do talk about the 23.3% of the police budget, which was the highest in history, perhaps across the country, which we have, as a council, had absolutely no say, again, because of the Police Act and provincial legislation. Their ask was met. So what I want to say to you is there is a plan, which I believe the Mayor has talked about, our senior staff have talked about, to be able to catch up on some of those reserves that are there. And I do want to say that we understand from yourselves and from all the residents last year, and we've really tried our best to sharpen the pencil as best we can. We understand the significant challenges that you do. So really my message to you is thank you for continuing to come out and to express your views on behalf of taxpayers, and we are listening. So I just wanted to get that on, and we do have a plan, so do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hornick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Mahoney made some very good points I appreciate. I had a couple things I was just going to kind of say to you. You start off by saying, it's an election year, and that was some very interesting statistics you've done. I appreciate the research. One thing I'd say, I can speak for myself. Every year I look at new programs that are being introduced. I question, are residents going to value that program? I always think, we've talked a number of times tonight about, let's just have taxes go at the CPI. Okay, you're right, that covers our costs. But most times we have people coming asking for new services. Tonight we've got a group of people who are very fiscally conservative, tax conscious. My three previous years on council, it's only been people who came who asked for more services. I don't remember anyone before this year coming to a budget session in 3 years that anyone ever asked for reductions. It was always, I'd like this new service, I'd like this service, and council listened and responded, right? We didn't make things up. We did it because there's a group of people, large or small, that asked us for that service. So I'd kind of put that to you, and I do appreciate some of your suggestions, because I think it's very easy for people to say, get rid of buses. Oh, by the way, I've never taken a bus in my life. You actually did suggest things, to your credit, that you'd use, so I appreciate that. When you made those suggestions, that's an appropriate thing, so I thank you for that. I guess I would say, you know, this year, it's hard to talk about additional reductions because there are no new initiatives here at the city, let's say. This council and our fellow councillors in other places were very active at the region because there are a bunch of new things that we pushed back on. If you watch the tapes at the region, the regional budget, a lot of us had a lot of different proposals. And sometimes we had a majority that agreed with us, sometimes we didn't. I had $12.4 million worth of cuts at the region. 4.4 were accepted, 7 million were not. This council voted for all of it. 7 million was not agreed by our friends in other places. Fair enough, that's democracy. But I would say, you know, we are active every year. We try our best, but we also respond to people's thoughts. Maybe more people are here today because we had that large increase last year, and you can say it came from different sources, but we responded to the way people came out, right? People who took the time to come were listened to. Last year, it was about, can I have more snow clearing, more money for the arts, more money for seniors, more paramedics, more police? Because remember last year too, we were in the middle of the home break-ins, the car theft. You can see, and Athena, you were at my 2 budget sessions, and I shared a great chart from the chief of police. You can see the previous 3 years, major crime was kind of flat. 24, there's a big spike. This year, thankfully, it's now come quite down. That's great. But police were also responding to that. They were saying they needed to play catch up. They were feeling they were behind. And how many calls from neighbors did you all have? My car's been stolen. My home's been broken into, right? You know, I appreciate, let's keep talking about this, and I love that we're getting this feedback. But council's, both tonight and in the past, responds to who shows up, and thank you for showing up tonight, because I think we're going to respond to that.
Mayor.
Councillor DeMerle.
Thank you, Chair, and I like the fact that lots of ideas and suggestions for cost cutting. Question to staff. I think, Mike, you were saying that for every tree that the city plants, it's a cost of $500, and I think you were suggesting that either part or all of that $500 cost is the green bag around the tree. Can somebody just give us some idea as to what that cost is like? And
yes, through the chair. The cost of the bag is probably around $25. The actual bag is there for the actual contractor so they can come out and water it as, part of the actual warranty program. So for the actual three or so years, they do come out and water the trees.
so is that bag a way for the contractor to identify and know this is the tree I need to water on a street? Is that the whole point?
Yes, correct.
And it costs $25. We couldn't just paint a ring around the tree. Might cost $5, but just an idea.
Yes, we could, but I think it's part of our program, and it just allows the contractor to be able to manage the actual tree program better.
I might submit that the bag might be $25, but the program I read somewhere is $500, and a white ribbon might be sufficient. They can water the grass by the tree.
Yeah, well, the one thing we don't do is we don't do debate back and forth with the deputants and members of council and staff. The other thing I'm going to mention is we're already into 2 hours, folks. I just want everybody to be mindful of time. I'm sure a number of people need to get home or would like to, but we'll continue on with the meeting, but I just want people to be mindful of time. Councillor Fonseca is next on the board.
Thank you, and I'll be really quick. I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming, for both of you, and the suggestions of where we can cut costs, because that was at the budget meetings, we did ask individuals to come back with that, and I know that it's very difficult. I just wanted to reiterate and remind everybody that not only do we publicly have meetings, at least since my time on council, and I know even before that because I attended many of the meetings, but this council at the city and also at the region has always been very good at hosting budget meeting sessions, not only in an election year, but really every year. In my time on council, we have listened to residents and hosted actually collaborative budget meetings right here in these council chambers with Region of Peel staff present. We've hosted virtual, we've hosted citywide, we've hosted collaborative budget meetings between councillors. And also, I believe every single one of us around this council table sit on varying committees where we have the opportunity to advocate to our provincial members and our federal members on making sure that the residents in the city of Mississauga and the region of Peel are getting a good return on investment for their tax dollars, and to ensure through the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities of Ontario, and also hosting meetings, which we just had one last Friday with the MPs and the MPPs, that we are ensuring that we're advocating on your behalf. So may not look like it, but we do have a lot of opportunity for residents to give input in term, even though within a year and within the 4 years of a council term, where we are constantly advocating, listening and advocating on behalf of the residents in our city and in the region of Peel to make sure that we are being very respectful of your dollars and trying to invest them in the best way possible, not only for the present, but for the future of our residents. So thank you again. I don't really have a question, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me that time to reiterate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you want to move receipt of the deputation then? Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much to both of you. Appreciate it. And maybe just so you don't think councillors are more special than people in the audience, maybe councillors could keep their comments a little bit brief and their questions brief, as well as members of the public. We should all be treated the same. So anyway, our next three are Kim Pines, Bowden Shkulovich, sorry, I apologize, and then Dave Sanford. Kim, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, fellow residents. My name is Kim Pines. I'm in Ward 3. You've all heard the famous quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin, "In this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes." In Mississauga, that quote is uncomfortably accurate. While I did not attend every councillor's budget meeting, I did attend over 6 as part of this roving group of us that went to many of the meetings. Each one was different, each raised new issues, and each time there were new questions from residents. I'd like to thank Councillor DeMerla for hosting the first budget meeting and kicking off the conversations. I'd also like to express my appreciation, or rather our appreciation, to Councillor Butt, Councillor Hornick, and Councillor DeMerla again for their leadership and engagement throughout this process, and especially for welcoming guests from any ward to attend your meetings. This was not true in all cases. One meeting did stand out a little bit for a good reason. Councillor Hornick, your love of numbers was very apparent during your meetings, and dare I even say it, you actually made it kind of fun. I'd also like to acknowledge the work and professionalism of staff, in particular Marisha Chu from the City of Mississauga and Devinder Valeri from the Region of Peel for their efforts, clarity, and patience in responding to the many and often difficult questions from residents. Looking at some of the future, at multiple meetings, councillors and the mayor repeatedly asked residents the same question: What service cuts would you like to see? With all due respect, why is that the default question? Why is the conversation starting from the point that residents must choose which services to lose rather than looking for structural efficiencies, developing spending disciplines, and long-term financial reform? Residents have offered thoughtful feedback both in person and by email. MirrorNet, Mississauga Residents Association Network, deputation on November 12th, for example, included practical and credible recommendations that deserved serious consideration. In response to MirrorNet's presentation, a member of council said, and I quote, "It's an election year. We all don't want to be thrown out. We love our jobs. We love serving the city." So I have to ask, as my previous group did, that's what it takes to get a lower budget in an election year. That's a rhetorical question. Skipping over to the levy stuff, this artificial lowering of expenses is only kicking the problem down the road. It does not solve this. This temporary reduction will come back, likely larger in the following budget. Assuming the budget that was shown tonight includes the $60 million of savings from the downloaded services mentioned by the mayor earlier, it's still showing that next year, 2027 and 2028 and 2029 are going to be high, essentially undoing any relief provided in this budget, leading us right back to where we started with high taxes. The Region of Peel released a similar budget using similar tactics, also showing a lower increase, followed in 2027, 28, and 29 with significant increases. If I can borrow Councillor Mahoney's word, that means that these 3 years, 27, 28, and 29, it's going to be horrendous. There's one specific item that came up during our groups following along since the fall. On July 10th of the Region Appeal meeting, Mississauga Councillor Butt, seconded by Councillor Hornick, introduced a motion directing Peel staff to find 2% savings in each department budget. That motion was passed by the Region Appeal Council. That same motion was then brought forward to Mississauga Council on July 30th, which was defeated in a vote of 6-4 and 6 against. 6 councillors voted yes to ask the city departments to find that 2% reduction. 5 councillors and the mayor voted no. They did not support asking the departments for a 2% reduction in budgets. So residents are left asking a very reasonable question. Why did Councillors Fonseca, Hart, Mahoney, Reid, Dasco, and Mayor Parrish vote no to ask Mississauga staff to find savings, yet voted yes at the Region Appeal? Look at it this way. The city and region are asking residents to absorb a 5.2% increase to our household budgets, while 6 members of council voted against asking staff to find even 2% in their budget. That's not quite equitable. I feel spending needs to be targeted and measurable. During the course of a year, you need to know how every single dollar spent affects the financial bottom line. You don't spend money you don't have. When times are tough and unstable, like they are now, the budget should identify needs, things we can't live without, versus wants, things that are nice to have. You don't buy a Maserati if you can only afford a Honda Civic. Residents are not asking for miracles. We're asking for transparency, accountability, value for dollars, and a genuine commitment to finding efficiencies and measuring return on investments before defaulting to service cuts or asking residents to pay more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim. Councillor Fonseca.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for being here. Kim, thanks for attending the budget meeting that was hosted in Ward 3, in which I invited anybody to attend from didn't matter what ward. You asked the question, or no, it wasn't you, it was August. Where's August? Is he still here? He asked that same question, and I responded that at the City of Mississauga, we have what's implemented is called a lean program, where it's an expectation, really, that all of the departments bring back cost savings. And on top of that, we also had a discussion, and I believe Marissa also addressed this, in that in some departments, staff have actually been able to find well above the 2% efficiencies. And that is exactly what was brought forward through the budget deliberation process. So you asked here tonight, and I believe I answered in the same way at the budget meeting that was held in Ward 3, and thank you very much for the question.
Okay, Mayor Parrish.
Yes, just to be very clear, the motion asks for 2% in each department. We have some departments that are so staff heavy that you can't. You can't get a 2% reduction in the fire department, for example, because it's a safety issue, it's union issue.
So this is Mississauga?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's my big heart is in Mississauga. So I didn't want to ask for 2% mandatory from each department because that's not fair. We have some that we went way over. So the end result of 2.3 was what we asked them to do, but they did it where it had to be done and where it could be done, and they left the people heavy, the safety heavy, all those the departments themselves. So the wording of the motion is what we voted against. Now, some of us, I'll just speak about myself, I'm always happy to cut stuff at the region because I think we get, I won't say it. We get treated badly there. We're the cash cow. So if the same motion passed at the region, we all cheered because we believe we are overpaying every single day at the region. So we're doing the best we can, again, to pull down what we can pull down and has gone through the province and they've given us permission, and we will see a big difference there. And they've also, thanks to Councillor Demerla, hired an Auditor General for the next 8 years. And Auditor Generals are well known to pay for their salaries 50 times over. So we are really keen on watching the region improve. But that motion here, the reason we left that to our staff is they know where the cuts can be made. We don't know as well as they do.
Thank you, Mayor Parrish. I don't see anyone else on the board. Mayor Parrish, did you want to move receipt of the deputant? Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Our next three, Bodan, Dave Sanford, and then Winston Harding. Is Bodan online? Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, Bodan, go ahead, sir. You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I'll keep my comments brief. I'm in Alvin Tedio's ward. I'm not sure which one it is. So I don't have a problem with city property taxes. I understand that living in the city, we require to pay for certain things that we have here, and we appreciate that. What I'm somewhat perplexed is as to why we are paying more on the city portion of our taxes, as an example, than Brampton. Brampton has got a population of 791,000. Mississauga's got a population of around 780,000. So we're losing to Brampton in terms of population. Brampton's city portion is 1.5%. Our city portion is 1.61%. Now, I appreciate impact valuations may be somewhat higher, but the rest is made up as to city levies for services provided by the city. We should, at the very least, be on par with the city of Brampton. That's point number one. Point number two, the region of Peel. When I got my property tax statement, the region of Peel comprised of the monster portion of the increase. Now, I very much appreciate Her Worship's comment with regards to fighting the region and the province with regards to the region of Peel in terms of what our portion is to pay. I believe that she mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was our share of Peel region is 58%. Again, that to me is quite perplexing given the population stream of Brampton and Mississauga, why we are not at least on equal footing, because Brampton's Peel region portion is 3.31%. Mississauga's portion is 3.6%. Caledon, which is laughing at everybody because they seem to hold the power in all of this, their portion is 1%. Now, Caledon is the smallest town, but still, 1% is nothing compared to what we have to pay. So I don't understand why we are so beholden to Region of Peel. There was an attempt under, well, obviously Mayor McCallion wanted to make us a city. Mayor Crombie succeeded in that, but then Premier Ford changed his mind because of all the hysterics that were being pushed towards him by some of the extremist views of raising taxes, etc. And I appreciate Mayor Parrish's comments that at least she's taking steps, hiring consultants to take a look as to either having an independent police force or somehow paying them differently so that they would become more part of a municipality eventually of Mississauga and City of Mississauga. However, there needs to be something more to be done from our councillors. Our councillors cannot just, and don't take this the wrong way, I don't think that you are just sitting idly by. I believe that you are trying to do something at Region of Peel in order to cut down our costs. But that has to be associated with getting the provincial government involved and also being vocal with the provincial government about this. We can't have another provincial government telling us that, yeah, you can become a city and then get away from Region of Peel and then backtrack on it. Moreover, my concern is that, again, the old red herring is going to be raised about the costs are going to be increased because of the infrastructure. Well, if you look at the population growth of Brampton in 1995 had 206,000, Mississauga had 528,000. In 2005, Mississauga had 650,000. In 2005, Brampton had 430,000. Whatever was built in Brampton during those years, since it became a corporation in 1975, was largely funded by Mississauga tax dollars. Therefore, if we are going to become a city at any one point in time, I'm not concerned about the infrastructure costs because Brampton will have to pay us for much of the infrastructure that we paid for if we were to separate and become our own municipality and city. And finally, on the issue of the Region of Peel, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Region of Peel is comprised of, what is it? I think it is, yeah, here it is. Region of Peel has got 12 votes from Mississauga, which includes the mayor, 9 votes from Brampton, and 3 votes from Caledon. And then there's a regional chair vote from, I don't know if the regional chair has a vote or not, Nando Yanika. But as it stands, it's 12 to 12 if Brampton joins up with Caledon. So if Region of Peel, if something doesn't fit to Mississauga standards, they don't want to pay something or whatever, I don't understand why we cannot cobble enough votes together amongst Mississauga and maybe get somebody from Caledon on board, or for that matter, Nando Yanika, who used to be part of the city, to vote with us. I'm not sure as to the dynamics of this. So the long and the short of it is, I don't mind paying the property city portion of the taxes. I understand that they are necessary. I just would like to have an explanation why ours are 1.61% higher than Brampton, who has a higher population. And yes, their impact values may be lower than possibly than Mississauga, but still, there is still a differential. And certainly Region of Peel issues that I have and that I have raised. So those are my comments.
Yeah, thank you, Bodan. I think the mayor would love to give you the Reader's Digest version of everything you have just said about our frustration with the Region of Peel level of government and the way Mississauga is treated. So over to the mayor.
And that's what I want to hear.
Nice shot,
Over
Brad.
to the mayor.
Nice shot, Brad, but I never take a long time to explain things. Easy breezy. The split that Bill Davis brought in, and I love the man, the split that he brought in when he created the Region of Peel was to protect Brampton. He was a resident of Brampton. He was a very important resident of Brampton. So he decided the fair share would be decided on MPAC. MPAC is the property values in a city. If you go outside right now and look at our skyline, we are loaded with tall buildings. We are loaded with Fortune 500 head offices. So those buildings, which don't commit crimes and don't cause a lot of trouble, are valuable. So we pay 58%, Brampton pays 36%, and Caledon pays 6%. Caledon only has 60,000 or 80,000 people. Yes, Brampton actually has 10,000 more than we do on the record, and they have a whole bunch of people they admit to that don't have any status. So it's not based on population, it's based on buildings. And buildings, you can say, okay, maybe that's not so bad. But when it comes to crime and police, it's very bad because buildings don't commit crimes. So that is one. Second, we have a nice kind of friendly rivalry going on, the two mayors, Brampton and Mississauga. He called me a week ago and said, you're coming in at 1.6? I said, yeah. You're at 2.2? He goes, not much longer. So he took 43 million out of his reserves and got it to 1.5. So it's a game. Ours isn't. We took out exactly what we needed, and we ended up with exactly what we needed. So I'm not being critical of the Mayor of Brampton. I get along with him extremely well, which actually works to our advantage because he joins us and votes all the time now. And the gentleman that was talking about numbers, we have 58% of the costs. We only have half the members there. So if you combine Brampton and Caledon, they have the other half. And what does Nando Unica do? He breaks ties when he chooses to do so, and very frequently votes with us because he's an old Mississauga guy. So the whole thing is unfair. The whole thing is a mess, but we're working with it this year. We're not fighting. We are trying our best to work together.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I don't see anyone else on the board. Madam Mayor, you'll move receipt of the deputation. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, our next three, Dave Sanford, Winston Harding, and Sherry Davis. So Dave, you're on.
Thank you. Dave Sanford. I live in the Pheasant Run community. I'm not going to be familiar to any of you people because for the last 40 plus years I've avoided government and politics as much as I possibly can. My dad was elected for 12 years in the old Etobicoke, and once I saw that I said, government service is great, but business is for me. And I still applaud all of you for what you have to do. Most of the people here have covered the details. I wouldn't be as presumptuous as to tell you how to go about running what is really a multi-million-dollar organization. A lot of good points, a lot of good corner points, and all those sort of things. There was a gentleman who spoke earlier about, budgets and balancing and all that kind of stuff. To me, it comes down to the fact that you guys are the stewards. Mr. I don't remember before, mentioned that, last year a bunch of people came asking for money. I'm sure they did. I'm sure every day people come asking you for money. Ran a number of businesses, owned a few. When they were shareholder businesses, people would come ask for money. It was easy to give it. Wasn't my money. Shareholders, what do you want? What do you need? Give it to you. Pay me my thing, pay me my golden parachute, doesn't matter. When it was my business, it was much different because it was my money. It was my house. It was my entire liquidity that was on the block. That's the challenge that all governments have these days. You're asked to provide services that are impossible, and we are all telling you that we can't afford it. How you balance that is very, very challenging. Madam Mayor has to lead the way. To be a councillor these days, all you have to do is to get the most number of people to vote for you. It doesn't mean you have any skill whatsoever in running a multi-million-dollar organization. And that's not a complaint, it's just our system, right? And not only that, I know so many people that would be great but don't want to go into politics. I don't want to go into politics. I do not want to sit in those chairs. Wow, that would be terrible because you have an impossible job. You might think of the mayor here as the CEO of Mississauga, which is true, but as you've explained, not really. You're the VP of a Canadian distributor, right? You have a premier and a prime minister and all kinds of special interests. So the only thing that I can say is that to the best of your possible abilities, right, you are fighting to change a system that we're all trapped in. It's just the way it is, right? And I wish I had an answer, but in order to do something about it, I'd have to put a name on a ballot. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, but I do appreciate what everybody has proposed, although what can I do? And I really appreciate what you guys have to go through every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. That was very kind of you. And thank you for coming out and expressing your views. I don't see anyone on the board. Councillor Daskal, will you move receipt of the deputant for us? Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, our next three, Winston Harding, Sherry Davis, and then Dale Biasin. So, Winston, you're up, my friend.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, city staff, and fellow residents of Mississauga. Tonight, I, Winston Harding, I'm here to speak to the people of this municipality. I've prepared questions. My first question is, Mississauga homeowners, renters, students, and seniors are already under significant financial pressure, with everyday costs such as food and essential continuing to rise. With the proposed 2026 property tax increase of 5.21, that's what they're seeing. Where are the people expected to find relief? What step is the city taking to ensure long-term stability, predictability, and affordability, especially given that this is an election year, when increases are typically modest? And future years, we could see even higher increase. My research shows that several Ontario municipalities are pursuing law of very modest property tax increase for 2026. And I'll say Toronto is at 2.2%, Oakville at 1.96, Kitchener 2.2, Vaughan 3%, London 3.4, Oshawa 3.9, Hamilton 4.26, and York Region 4.26. Madam Mayor and members of council, given that Mississauga proposed increase is materially higher than many of those, what specific efficiency measure, cost control strategies, or service delivered changes has Mississauga implemented or chosen not to implement that account for this difference? Also, Bloor Street, since Bloor Street is now going to remain as it is, what will the city do with the 17 million that had been allocated for that design? What will the city do with it? Will it put it back into reserve fund? Think about it. Mississauga residents are hurting. Food prices is way up. And with the taxes going up, what are they going to do? We need more help from the city. Rather than raising taxes, we should be helping them more. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much, Winston. Maybe we can ask staff to comment. You mentioned a number of the other municipalities sort of in the Greater Toronto area and what their proposed tax rates are, so maybe someone can weigh in on that, and then obviously the Bloor Street issue, if staff wanted to answer the Bloor Street issue.
To you, Mr. Chair, I'll start off with the Bloor Street project. So that is not in the 2026 capital plan. That money was returned through WIP, and Jeff spoke about that process earlier tonight, and that was approximately $30 million that was returned to reserves through WIP. Now, it is identified in our 10-year capital plan, and that'll be contemplated in the future. We don't have a specific time yet, as you all know. There was legislation that really prohibited us from moving forward with our preferred alternative, and we're back to the drawing board, so to speak. So when we reinitiate that process, we would like some feedback back from the province. We have not received any specifics on our ask with regards to the regulations around that legislation. Then we would look at reinitiating that process, but there is no money earmarked in 2026 for Bloor.
Okay, and I don't know, Mercer, did you want to make a comment just about surrounding areas and proposed tax rates, and maybe how those municipalities work, which may work a little bit different than
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. So I'll start by saying that some of the municipalities that were highlighted, some are lower tier, some are single tier. Sorry? Can you hear? Some are single tier, some are lower tier, some are upper tier. So, for example, Vaughan, York, Vaughan is at 3%, York is at 4.26%. Those really need to be combined to compare to our combined 5.2% increase. Also, City of Toronto operate very differently as a single-tier municipality. They have a lot more revenue tools, so they have land transfer tax that we do not have, and they also have a much more denser population, a lot more commercial industrial properties that shift the tax burden away from residential properties. So it's very difficult to compare City of Toronto with our tax increase for that reason.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from members of the committee? No? Okay, Winston, thank you very much. Councillor Mahoney will move receipt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the last three on the list, the pre-registered list, Sherry Davis, then Dale Biasin, and Chris Mackey. So, Sherry, you are up next.
Good evening, Mayor Parrish and City Councillors. My name is Sherry Davis. Some of you know me. I spoke at the Region of Peel not too long ago. I live in Brad Butt's ward, Ward 11, and I, for the last 8+ months, first, before I wanted to thank all of you. I know you've heard this from others. Thank you all for your efforts in fielding our concerns and acting to try and lower our taxes. I know that this is a tricky business. I would certainly not want to be in it, so I appreciate your efforts and your probably exhaustion at some point. Over the last 8+ months, I've been working with my MPP, Deepak Anand, and speaking with other Mississauga MPPs and or their representatives to address the police budget disparity that requires Mississauga taxpayers to pay almost double of what Brampton taxpayers pay for policing. A few days ago, I was told by my MPP, because I keep in touch with him and I keep pestering him, that the City of Mississauga will be getting a significant amount of money in the millions of dollars from the province to alleviate the tax burden in our home and business owners, on our home and business owners caused by this disparity. This is coming in the near future, my understanding is. I haven't heard a word from you folks. And this announcement is supposed to be made in the next few days. I asked him if I could speak at the meeting and bring this up, and he said yes. So, I don't know the exact details. I'm wondering, you all look kind of surprised about this. Mayor Parrish, have you been told about this money and when this will be sent to the city? My understanding was there was supposed to be some agreement. This legislation or whatever policy bill, whatever it is, was supposed to be sent to the treasurer in Ontario, of the province of Ontario, to sign, and that got delayed. It was supposed to happen before the holidays, and it didn't. So I said, isn't this figure? And ultimately, he texted me a few days ago. We spoke on the phone. Do you have any sense of this? Why is Mayor Parrish is looking perplexed? Is he telling me stories, or is this true? Can I continue then, or should I just continue? Okay. So I don't know the details of the sum, but I understand that it is supposed to be in response to this disparity, which I have been really pushing to try and get some fairness for the residents of the taxpayers of Mississauga, the homeowners and the business owners of Mississauga. Seems like it's a surprise to you folks, but I was going to ask, has this money been factored into our 2026 budget, even though it sounds like it hasn't been sent yet? And if not, will we see a reduction in our taxes once this money is transferred? Mayor Parrish, I know that you have been in talks with our Premier, Doug Ford, and have been working hard, very hard, to get a reduction in our portion of the police budget over the next 3 years so that we fairly split the budget with Brampton. And I know there's been pushback from Brampton on this. Can you tell me if the money that has or will be transferred is part of the proposed 3-year tax reduction plan that I understand some of you are privy to? This is what we're working towards, and certainly I have been told by many MPs about this. Is this money that we're getting back to be a reoccurring thing, maybe you don't know this, or a one-time disbursement simply because this is an election year? And I'm going to be blunt, because I am a blunt person if you saw me at the Region Appeal. I'm assuming maybe because Ford and his government has a vested interest in who will be mayor of Mississauga. Could this disbursement from the provincial government explain why our roads are being delayed by the province, hence why this savings is not included in the 2026 budget? And do you know if, when we get it, will Brampton be getting a disbursement as well?
Okay, thanks a lot, Sherry, and I know the mayor is probably eager to answer as much as she can of your questions.
First of all, I never count my chickens before they're hatched.
I get it.
I don't even have any chickens on the ramp coming up to see me. I think Deekbach probably chatters a bit too much. If, in fact, this is happening, it's not included in this budget. I hope you're right. I've worked hard on this for months and had my fingers crossed. I also saw you at Brad Butt's meeting, and you did an excellent job. So perhaps you're the one that's getting it for us if it does happen. But
I don't think so.
I have no chickens. I have no eggs. I have no expectations, and I'll believe it when I see it. And I thank you very much for the good news. I hope it's true.
Well, I just want to say that I asked if I could talk to you about it, and he said, of course, I want you to.
Did he say talk to me about it in a room full of people?
Oh, I asked him if it was okay if I brought it up at the meeting.
I'm going to call him as soon as I get out of here.
You call him. Call
Okay.
him.
Thank you very much, Sherry, for your presentation
Can I just
today.
have an answer to the question, though?
Keep our
If we do
fingers
get
crossed.
it, are we getting a reduction in taxes?
It's not factored in.
That
So I
doesn't
don't
answer
know.
my question.
I don't know if we get it. We'll talk about it more. We've got another week of budget meetings.
Okay.
I think we'd also have to figure out where exactly it's being allocated. Is this money going to the Region Appeal to offset policing costs, or
My
is this
understanding
money
it's
coming to the
Mississauga.
city of Mississauga? I think
No,
that's a
my
big
understanding
difference.
It's coming to Mississauga because
Well,
of
we
the
we
police
don't know
budget.
because we haven't been told.
Okay.
So I think we'll deal with it. If we get a good announcement from the province, we'll deal with it. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry, for that. Mayor Parrish, you wanted to move receipt of the deputation. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Next is Dale.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, members of council, I am speaking today on behalf of the board of the Rockwood Residents Association and our members, the residents of Rockwood Village in Ward 3. Thank you for the opportunity to place our comments on the public record regarding Mississauga's 2026 budget. We recognize that the potential to affect change to this budget is minimal. Our comments, therefore, today are focused on future budgets and future decision-making. Our purpose today is therefore not to relitigate the 2026 budget, but to clearly articulate residents' concerns and expectations going forward, particularly as the council approaches the final year of its mandate and as we enter an election year. The city has presented its budget that includes a 5.21% increase in property taxes. For many residents, this came as a relief, as initial discussions suggested increases in the 10 to 11% range. That said, relief should not be confused with comfort. A 5.34% increase is still significant, particularly when viewed in the context of recent history. Over the past 8 years, Mississauga property taxes have increased almost 40%, while household incomes, especially for seniors and residents on fixed incomes, have not kept pace. This final budget number was achieved through a combination of reducing or eliminating certain levies and drawing from reserve funds. While this provides short-term relief, it raises a serious concern for residents that costs deferred in 2026 will simply reappear in the 2027 budget, compounding affordability challenges rather than addressing them in a sustainable way. We commend city councilors for keeping the municipal increase at 1.61%. However, we must also acknowledge that every Mississauga councilor sits on regional council. As such, you collectively voted on and approved the Region of Peel budget as a 3.1%, including a 9.9% increase to the Region of Peel police budget. And we appreciate the work that you are trying to do with the Region of Peel. We've been with the city of Mississauga for separating from the Region of Peel forever, and I hope, Mayor, that you will come to our next annual meeting and explain your position and the work that the council has been doing towards that end. But residents reasonably expect the same level of fiscal discipline, scrutiny, and restraint at the regional table as demonstrated at the city table. From a resident's perspective, the distinction between city and region is academic. The tax bill is one bill, and affordability is one issue. Many residents recall former Mayor Hazel McCallion, who was frequently asked how she managed to keep Mississauga's finances under control. Her answer was simple and memorable. She treated the city's money as if it were her own. That philosophy earned her the trust of residents and sustained her leadership for decades, often without electoral challenge. Another hallmark of her tenure was her ability to attract corporate investment to help offset costs that would otherwise fall on residents. In recent years, that approach appears to be weakening, and the result has been a growing reliance on residential property taxes to fund expanding ambition. At a recent Ward 3 budget meeting, a resident made a request that resonated deeply with our community. They asked council to treat the city's budget the same way families treat their household budgets. Families plan spending based on known income. Increasingly, however, it appears that the city determines what it would like to spend first, then distributes those costs to taxpayers afterwards. At that same meeting, city staff suggested that residents direct their concerns to the provincial and federal governments in the hope of securing more favorable transfer payments. Upon reflection, our board of directors concluded that while additional revenue may help in the short term, we are not confident that increased income alone would address the underlying issues. We believe the city must first demonstrate the ability to live within its means. This is a basic test of fiscal responsibility, one that every household must meet, and one the city is currently struggling to achieve. What concerns residents most is not any single line item, but the cumulative effect of repeated and above inflation increases and a budgeting approach that appears to prioritize expansion and enhancement ahead of long-term affordability. Residents are already leaving Mississauga in search of more affordable housing and employment opportunities elsewhere. That should concern all of us. The Rockwood Residents Association believes it is time for council to make difficult and sometimes unpopular choices. This includes reconsidering advocacy for new infrastructure and service enhancements that may be desirable but are not essential. Projects such as bicycle lanes, bus rapid transit, and new community centers are often presented as improvements. However, these initiatives were strongly opposed by many of our residents who question both their necessity and their value relative to rising taxes. Years later, the BRT stations are empty. Mississauga Transit is in the red, and a bicyclist is rarely seen on the bike lanes that our community opposed. At the same time, windrow clearing, a service with a significant and ongoing cost, was implemented without public consultation, further reinforcing concerns about how priorities are set and how trade-offs are managed. Certainly a crowd pleaser in an election year, but at whose expense? I'm sorry. As we look ahead, many residents are focused not just on the 2026 budget, but also on what follows. There's an old adage that many a true word is spoken in jest, and recent public remarks about the timing of budget decisions have reinforced concerns that fiscal restraint applied in 2026 may not extend beyond the election cycle. Accordingly, while acknowledging that this budget will probably be finalized, the Rockwood Residents Association will be working with our resident association partners across the city to advocate that this council and the next commit to the following principles. First, clearly differentiating between essential services and non-essential enhancements within the city's budget. Second, reevaluate discretionary spending and defer, scale back, or eliminate items that are not urgent or do not deliver clear value to residents. The third, ensure that tax dollars are allocated in a way that reflects the financial realities residents are facing. Fourth, demonstrate transparency in how budget priorities are determined and how trade-offs are made, so residents can understand not only what decisions are made, but why. Finally, we respectfully request that the city undertake, and you've already said you will, an independent audit to include a cost-benefit analysis of spending to provide residents with confidence that public funds are being used responsibly and effectively. Taking these steps will help maintain public trust and ensure that the city remains focused on delivering the services that matter most to your residents. As this is an election year, residents will be paying close attention. We'll be looking for these principles to be clearly reflected in the platform of all candidates seeking to represent Mississauga. While the 2026 budget will probably not change, the direction of future budgets must change. Residents expect leadership, discipline, and transparency, and we will continue to advocate for these values in the months ahead. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, for the opportunity to place these comments in the record.
Thank you very much, Dale. I don't see any questioners on the board. Councillor McFadden, would you move receipt of the deputation? Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And as you know, we've noted many of your points.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dale.
Thank you.
Okay, we're finally, I think we're just at the last pre-registered deputation. Chris Mackey. Come on up, Chris, and you definitely know the drill, so.
Sorry, I'm slowing down a bit. Good evening, Councillor Butt and members of Budget Committee. It's nice to be here again, but it's well past my bedtime, so I will be fairly brief. I've been very impressed with the presentations this evening. I was particularly interested in the discussion on reserve accounts and reserve balances, and also the implication or the imposition of a storm water charge. And I want to state unequivocally that I'm strongly in favour of the storm water charge. I certainly wasn't about 12 years ago when it was first introduced, but we've only got to consider the impact of global warming, climate change, and to see the devastating impacts it has upon the lives of some people. I live fairly close to Lake Ontario, not on it, about 100 meters back, and we get some tremendously strong winds along the waterfront. I remember 3 years ago coming back from a canoe trip in Algonquin Park, and there was a tremendous deluge of rain which flooded parts of Mississauga for 2 days. And then, of course, there's a situation in Lisgar where we hear that people have been flooded for 26 times. We're all part of a community, and we should be prepared to support each other in these situations. Now, I wish to congratulate our finance staff and the mayor for presenting a budget with a residential tax increase of only 1.61%. That is, in fact, less than the annualized CPI. I'm referring to the annualized CPI of 1.89% for Ontario, as reported by Rev Canada. The city's modest tax increase is truly exceptional. Managing a budget on behalf of the public of $1.405 billion is a huge responsibility, and I thank you for the effort and the work that goes into preparing the budget, and particularly I want to acknowledge Faraz and Marissa for the work that they do. This must have been a very difficult budget for them to prepare. Now, at Mironet's presentation to General Committee back in November, Mayor Parrish said she expected us, I think she was referring to Mironet, to be pleased with the 2026 budget, and indeed many are. But there are a few loose ends in 2027. Because 2027 is going to be very different, and one only has to look at the 4-year business plan to see that for 2027, the city's portion of the residential tax increase is forecast to be 5.55%, and then for 2028, 3.33%. This, and I don't wish to be respectful at all, but this is very much an election year budget, and it will cost taxpayers down the road. I want to say a few words about the infrastructure and debt retirement levers being reduced from 3 to 1%. The impact of that reduction is a total of $254 million, which is removed from various departmental budgets in 2026. That is a colossal hit to the city, and I'm just wondering how the city can manage to maintain its infrastructure with departmental budgets being demolished by that extent. The total decrease of $254 million is split between the infrastructure levy and the debt retirement levy. We know that the infrastructure levy was actually increased in 2008. Staff have told us that in their staff report. But my recollection is that the debt retirement levy was introduced several years after that, perhaps 5 years later. So I'm wondering if in actual fact we could, or the city could consider maintaining the infrastructure levy at 1%, but retiring the debt retirement levy for the test year in question. So this would reduce the impact, or rather increase the impact on the property tax levy of 1% initially, because you would have a 1% rather than a 2% levy in effect. And I raise this because I really have concerns about the long-term fiscal stability of the city, with $33 million having been withdrawn from the Fiscal Stability Reserve Fund, as well as this, as well as the double or 2% decrease in the two levies. I do have a couple of suggestions with regards to the budget issues. I know that one of the most difficult things at budget time is for the city to determine, well, what programs can it cut out, or what costs can it reduce. I did raise a question yesterday at Budget Committee regarding the cost of repaving the Huron Park Community Centre, and the response was, well, the actual cost was $1.4 million, including a new ramp to assist access for disabled people, and an additional $25,000 for the final landscaping. That was a very complete response. But in regards to that, I'm wondering whether the city expenditures such as this would benefit from an independent audit. And this has been risen a couple of times this evening, and I strongly support the recommendation of Athena Tadju and Mike with regards to the city employing an independent financial auditor. He or she would be independent of the city manager, would report directly to council. I have several questions, not particularly profound compared with some of the presentations you've heard this evening, but I'm wondering why the city itself is required to raise $390 million for a regional hospital to provide specialized care for patients from around the province. We've heard that that is going to be covered by a 1% levy commencing in 2029, I believe, for 4 years, but there's going to be a significant portion left thereafter in 2023, which is going to be floated by a debenture. I think that the information I got yesterday from Faisal was that there would be something like $234 million that had to be financed by debt financing. But in that same year, if you look at your debt financing plan, the city already proposes issuing $100 million of debt. So we're now looking at $334 million of debt in 2033 or 2034. I'm not sure which of those 2 years. So I'm wondering what that is going to do to the city's AAA credit rating that it's been awarded by Standard & Poor's for the last several years. There's no question that Mississauga, along with other municipalities, is strongly underfunded. Social programs continue to be downloaded from the province, and it's my belief, well, it's not very relevant, that the province should be indicating or dedicating 0.5% of the PST to support municipalities for the downloading of these social costs. But if this doesn't come about, and I don't assume for one moment that it will, I suggest that Mississauga should unilaterally introduce a land transfer tax to offset some of these social programs. So finally, This is not a budget that I think finance staff would have designed. It appears to have been directed by the mayor using the strong mayor's legislation. And in your deliberations, Budget Committee, please consider some of the very creative suggestions you've heard this evening and to help deal with some of the imponderable problems that the city faces financially at the present time. Thank you. That's all I have to say, Budget Committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mackey. I guess on two of your suggestions. One is it would be great if the province would share some of the provincial sales tax with municipalities. Some of us around this table have been calling for the federal and provincial governments for years to give us a piece of the HST. Many cities in the United States get sales tax revenue. Municipalities in Canada get zero. So that's one good thing. The second thing you raised was a land transfer tax. We do not have the power. We're not the City of Toronto. We can't even implement a land transfer tax even if we wanted to in the City of Mississauga. That would take a provincial legislative change as well. The only city in the entire province that can levy a land transfer tax is the City of Toronto because they have special powers. So yeah, they also can do a vehicle tax. I know that got killed. They did bring it in. They have other taxing powers in the City of Toronto that we do not have at either the City of Mississauga or the Region Appeal level. So I just wanted to raise those two things because you did raise them. I just wanted to make sure people in the audience are not confused as to what we actually have the power to do and what we don't. But I do see a couple of councillors on the board, so Councillor Daskal.
Well, Councillor Batt, thank you for that explanation. I was confused, obviously, and I'd forgotten that the City of Toronto had special taxing powers that we don't.
We don't have. Unfortunately, we don't have it. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Daskal.
Thank you through the chair. Chris, thank you very much for coming again and spending what you do every year, which is a lot of time and a lot of effort going into our city budgets. Some of the points that I was going to just make, Councillor Butt just made with regards to some of the special privileges under the Toronto Act that the City of Toronto has been given by the province of Ontario. Nonetheless, a lot of what you've spoken about and what residents have spoken about, we have been lobbying the province of Ontario for to try to get more equitable treatment because really that is a legislative change because it affects everybody. And what's fair is fair. And so what you're speaking of, always great points, and look forward to chatting with you in some greater detail as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for coming out, as always. Okay, I think we're down to public question period. So I'll read the information with respect to how public question period operates. Pursuant to Section 58 of the Council Procedural Bylaw 044-2022 is amended, Budget Committee may grant permission to a member of the public to ask a question of the Budget Committee with the following provisions. 1, questions may be submitted to the clerk at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. 2, a person is limited to 2 questions and must pertain to a specific item on the current agenda, and the speaker will state which item the question is related to. 3, the total speaking time shall be 5 minutes maximum per speaker unless extended by the mayor or the chair. And 4, any response not provided at the meeting will be provided in the format of a written response. I do believe we have 2 written submissions. Do we want to read those out, or are we going to respond to those? You're going to read them out? Over to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have 2 written submissions. One is from Mike Fisher. What expenditures can be reduced, delayed, and/or omitted completely or until the Canadian economy recovers? Residents do this all the time when they consider groceries, going out for dinner, major purchases like automobiles and family vacations. So the same mindset should apply here too. Question 2, given the fact that employment, wages, pensions, and other income sources are not a given or growing at the proposed budget percentages, how can City Council reasonably expect the taxpayers to absorb another significant tax increase? There's
quite a bit in those 2 questions. I'm not sure of verbal I think it might be better if we gave a really good written response on those two. The person's obviously taken a considerable amount of time to give it some thought, and I didn't want to just brush it off in a 2-second response tonight. So can we arrange just to have a written response to that? Is that the will of the committee to do it that way? I think the person deserves a really meaty response to that, because there's a lot in there. Okay, you want to go with the second one?
And the second questioner is Sophia Beaver. Why are basement apartments not taxed at a higher rate due to the fact that they are using double the services? Every household seems to have tenants and they should be taxed more. Please explain.
Okay, now maybe that's a good one we can have staff respond to, because obviously if a basement apartment is created, I'm jumping on your thunder there, Marissa, but if a basement apartment that we know of is legally installed and created, it will have effect on the assessed value of the home. But Marissa, over to you.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the assessment values of the properties are determined by MPAC. So the City of Mississauga does not have any involvement with assessing the values. There are different classifications of properties, but in terms of the property tax calculation, as I mentioned earlier, it's based on the budget levy requirements multiplied by the assessment value, and the number of tenants or people living in the dwelling has nothing to do with the property tax calculation. So this is why we are not going to impose any additional taxes on dwellings that have more tenants compared to other single-family homes. And as you mentioned, it is all based on assessment. So if they add an additional unit to a property, that will increase the property assessment value of that property.
Right, and I know that issue has come up with the recent decisions to allow for 3-plexes and 4-plexes as of right in residential zones, that if someone converts a home to that and now it's 4 homes, the assessed value of that property is going to go up considerably, which means that the property taxes that are paid on that property are going to also go up significantly with the assessed value. So if there is a basement apartment that you've built in your residence, you applied for a building permit, MPAC's going to be made aware of that, which is the property assessor. They're going to come out, and I can assure you, because I've had residents call me and complain that their taxes went up because their assessment went up because they put in a basement apartment. So we know the system works, and it does catch homes that have now become a duplex or a 3-plex or a 4-plex. So those do happen, and they get caught, and those homes pay additional property taxes. So those were the 2 that came in advance. Do we have any
We have
others?
one registered speaker, Frida Ricardo.
Okay. So this is a welcome, and this is a question.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to everyone who talked on social media, inviting us out here to say our words, and I appreciate being heard. What I'm going to speak to is really important to me, and I'm going to just get my questions out. I'm tired, like everybody here. The first thing I'd like to speak to is program effectiveness and budget. You're asking the taxpayers to support increases without showing us responsible management of the tax dollars you already have. While some services may legitimately cost more, has the city actually evaluated all the programs to make sure we're not simply asking residents for more money before looking at what's still needed and what isn't? For example, for years, the city has continued funding crime prevention programs like Safe City Mississauga. Even though these programs have produced no measurable results in our neighborhoods, I particularly participated directly and volunteered my time, and I saw that the work presented to the public does not match what is being done. So my question is, why is the taxpayer money being directed into services that are ineffective, poorly managed, and disconnected from real community needs, instead of into areas like police response times, reliable online reporting, and essential services where the public can actually see results.
Okay, who would like to take that one?
Maybe I'll turn it over to Raj to talk about the grant process, because I think that's really where Safe City Mississauga would fall into, and other agencies.
Yes, through the chair. We do work with a number of groups, and they do come in and go through their plan for the year. They do go and show us their KPIs, and we do certainly sit down with each of the groups. They go through a process with us, and then we do come back to council with our thoughts, and then council goes and approve the amount every single year.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a moment to say that I've seen how many of us councillors do rely on the work that Safe City Mississauga does with their neighborhood watch programs and some of their initiatives, and specifically within my ward with their business watch program, how that directly impacted the thefts that were happening in the Airmills Town Center when they came in. So we see many benefits from it. Personally, I know many of the councillors do engage in neighborhood watch programs and the business watch programs, and from my perspective, it's been a very valuable part of the safety ecosystem in our city, alongside the police. So that's been the benefit for me personally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your question.
Okay. With the rapid rise in high-rise development, with the rapid rise in high-rise development, existing taxpayers are already paying for the infrastructure needed to support these projects. These developments primarily benefit the builders, not the residents funding the city. Why are developers not covering these costs themselves, and why are taxpayers being asked to pay for growth that does not benefit us?
Okay, who on the front bench would like to answer how that works when a new condo is built and how it's funded, and then how property taxes are paid and how they contribute to the overall expenditures of the municipality? Marissa?
So through the chair, so I've mentioned earlier that housing growth, or in Faraz's presentation, housing growth does have a positive impact to our budget through our property assessment growth. Obviously, there's a delay because with property assessment growth, that happens when the buildings are occupied. But in essence, when there are more people sharing the city tax bill, it does benefit individual taxpayers. And with regards to payments for growth infrastructure, our condo developers, through development charges, cash in lieu of taxes, and CBCs, or community benefit charges, have been funding some of this growth infrastructure, although with the Bill 23 and Bill 60 reforms, this has, through the province, been shifting. And we are currently strongly advocating to senior levels of government to fund our housing infrastructure. And we have been receiving funding. So, for example, the Housing Accelerator Fund from the federal government in the past 2 years have helped supported growth infrastructure. So, but we are continue to monitor the impacts to ensure we do not pass that bill to our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you. Okay, that's it for public question period.
I was just wondering, Mr. Chair, if there were the folks who had registered to present but were not online yet, if they ever came back.
They did not come back, and there was one additional person who registered this evening, Frank Maslin.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, Frank, we'll give you a few minutes.
Good evening, and I will be quick. Peel Regional Police have requested $837.3 million. We are paying 62%. Mississauga pays 62%. This you already know. However, I spoke to Cusetto some time ago, and I spoke with you, Madam Mayor, about the possibility of going 50-50 or close to that split with Brampton, as they are primarily responsible for the growth in the police budget. That in itself would, if that were to come to pass, that would result in a $100.476 million per year. Is that correct? Do you agree with that assessment or not? Based on 837 million .3 budget request.
The only part I don't agree with was last year it cost us 143 million. This year it's costing us 100 million extra.
I can't hear you.
Last year it was 143 million extra. This year it's 100 million extra that we're paying. So your question would be what?
That's right.
You're absolutely right.
Okay. Now, also want to point out that in Toronto's cost per capita is $426 for policing. In the region of Peel, it's $508 per capita. Do you agree with that statement?
I haven't done the math, but I think I do.
Okay. Well, it might vary $1 here or there, but okay. So why is it that we have it's so much higher in Peel?
Because when the region was established 50 years ago.
Pardon?
Can you hear me? When the region was established 50 years ago, it was decided at that time that it would be based on MPAC, the evaluation of our buildings. And Mississauga has always had bigger, more expensive buildings. And Brampton has been lower buildings, not fully built out. So we were assigned 62% based on the value of our buildings. The argument I make with the Premier is the buildings don't do crime. People do. Ergo, we would like one of two things. We would like to be put on the OPP formula, which does it a little bit on impact, a little bit on number of people, and a little bit on amount of crime. I'd take that. Or we have a study going on right now to look at an independent police force for Mississauga. Hamilton has one, London, Ontario has one, so we're having that done right now.
Okay, perfect. Now, just one last thing, the Queensway Hospital. I have to mention this because it is such a glaring omission that we haven't discussed it, in my opinion anyway. Mark Carney, our Prime Minister, has announced, and I know that you want to count your chickens, don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, but anyhow, he has announced $200 million over 10 years, plus annual inflation increases. All right, so that amounts to $20 billion per year. Ontario is 39% of Canada's population, okay? So if that money is allocated on a per capita basis, we would see $7.8 billion per year of that, plus the cost of living, the inflation portion of it. So that amounts to less, $390 million of what we are asked to pay, amounts to less than 1/2 of 1%. Okay? 7 of the $7.8 billion on an annual basis, spread out over 10 years. And I believe you have a different, you mentioned 2029 to 2033, but nevertheless, over a 10-year period, it's less than. Therefore, we have a strong case to make that we shouldn't have to pay the $390 million for that hospital when healthcare is a provincial responsibility.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, and thank you very much, Frank. We'll let the mayor respond to that, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
There is no legislation that says we have to pay anything. It's a custom that was started about 20 years ago with hospital expansions. So the custom has become something we have to do. The original bill they gave us was $450 million, and we said we're not paying it. So then it came down to $390, and we have agreed to pay it on certain conditions, which we're waiting to see what happens.
But in light of the fact that you're getting presumably $7.8 billion, if the $20 billion is divided by multiplied by 0.39%, you're going to get $7.8 billion per year.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know what? We're not going back and forth. Thank you. You've made your point, sir, on the hospital funding, and I appreciate it. And we'll leave it at that. Doesn't come in until 2029 anyway. But good points. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. We just have two matters for approval for receipt under correspondence. 11.1, an email dated January 7th, 2026, from George Christodopoulos, resident, regarding resident feedback on the 2026 budget. Someone want to move receipt of that? Councillor McFadden, that's a recorded vote. Well, it says recorded vote on my list here. It's not. Okay, show of hands. Okay. 11.2 is an email dated January 12, 2026 from Dan Anderson regarding 2026 property tax communication and reported discrepancies, moved by Councillor Mahoney. All in favor? That is carried. We have no closed session items for the meeting. Was there any other business any members of the committee wanted to raise at this meeting? No? That's it? Okay, I think we're not meeting again till next Tuesday, if I understand it.
Councillor Butt, I think we just wanted to go over next steps and whether anyone on council had any questions so that we know when to schedule budget for next week.
Okay.
If anybody had any requests, given that we've completed all of the presentations. So if there's anything, please
well, if you have any
share that now.
requests, get on the board. Councillor Hornick.
Thanks. Councillor Dasko and I were just chatting before with Marissa, and we mentioned that there's a lot of interesting things happening in our technology section, and Ryan has been named as the permanent IT head. So just not a full presentation, but maybe if he'd be there to give us a little update and answer some questions, I think that might be appreciated. I think it's an interesting topic of the city. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sure we can accommodate that. Anyone want anything else to be on the agenda for next Tuesday? I don't think we're going to meet Monday.
That's what we're trying to determine.
We're trying to determine. We probably don't need the 2 days.
Because I had also heard that there was some interest in a planning and building department service area review. So is that still on the table?
Was that someone's request? Go ahead, Councillor Merla.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if he can have planning present. Thank you.
Okay, so IT and planning, that's fine. Councillor Tedjo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was also a conversation of having corporate services kind of come back with a bit of a description on what exactly was deferred and for how long and how much, and which were deferred because of the infrastructure levy or the fire levy or a reduction in DCs, and having that sort of clarified. And I think that was also something that we could do for Tuesday.
Okay, we're good for that to be on the agenda for next Tuesday as well? Okay, that's good. Good direction. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to see on the next budget committee agenda next Tuesday? No? Sorry? A check from the province? Yeah. Well, apparently we want Deepak Anand to come because he's got the check.
Come with the check.
Apparently he's got the check, so I had no idea. But anyway, okay. So just finally, thank you everyone for coming out. It's been a long night. We very much appreciate your input and feedback. So I can say on behalf of the mayor and all members of council and our staff that we very much appreciate you coming out tonight and sharing your views with us. So thank you very much. We've still got a couple of weeks to go before the final budget will get approved. But again, thanks for coming. Safe travels home tonight. And with that, I'll ask Councillor Hornick to move adjournment. So moved. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.